Game begin.
Welcome to episode 21 of the Spike Colony Podcast. I'm here with Fall Brawl commentator, number 3 Fall Brawl commentator after Lanny and Mike Hoyp, Michael J. Flores, and I'm the number 2 Fall Brawl commentator, Lanny Huang. I've commentated 2 Fall Brawls. I guess you commentated 2 Fall Brawls now too, so we're even at 2s.
I commentated last year's Spring Fling Finals, which is my first encounter with Tom Metelsky. He lost that Spring Fling Finals, by the way.
Last year's Spring Fling Finals had Tom in it?
Yep, he lost. He was playing Devourer combo, and he lost to the Gamekeeper.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, the Turtle Splash.
Turtle Splash.
We don't have to talk about Turtle Splash. Okay, well, big week in Premodern. The Fall Brawl is nearing a conclusion.
Finals is tonight. Neither of us is going to comment.
Allegedly tonight.
It's tonight, bro.
It's schedules allowing. McLean Denny on Hermit Feb is going to face off against David Raska from Rochester, New York, who's going to be playing his own Mistress Factory Mono Blue Dreadnought deck. Additionally, we had the conclusion of one of the European nationals. I'm starting to lose track, which saw Flippy, big Euro guy, win with his signature blue-white weenie standstill deck featuring 4 Savannah Lions in a weenie standstill mirror in the finals.
Wait, what?
Of this tournament. So this is a national tournament.
Is this on TC Decks?
It's on TC Decks, yeah. So you'll have to pull that up. I played 5 matches of Premodern this week. I sleeved up my newest rendition of Lanny Replenish. I cut all but one Parallax Tide from the main deck, which so far I've not missed it. You just intuition for the one Tide, but like drawing it the rest of the time is just kind of boring, especially because I cut so many Seal of Cleansing from the deck. And so that went well, except for I played against Weenie Standstill twice and lost twice because that matchup is horrible. Because Savannah Lions trading for 1 counter off of Parallax Wave is, not very fair.
So it was the Dutch Nationals?
Dutch National, yeah.
And Jens Jaeger was the hero of Red White Slide. Jens Jaeger came in second.
Yeah, we had some hot discourse in the Premodern Discord with some people positing that Red White Slide was never a good deck.
But then Jens Jaeger bombed them.
Well, he didn't Jaeger bomb because he didn't play it for this Nationals. So that was last year.
Yeah, but
that was the last appearance of Red White Slide in a top 8. So
I mean, Red White Slide is an excellent deck as long as nobody's playing big spells. Like if you're not playing Cataclysm, Armageddon.
Yeah, but now all the decks are playing those cards.
It's not good for Red White Slide. I mean,
Cataclysm is at an all-time high. Yeah. And then, I mean, I guess Red White Slide might be good against...
And Armageddon.
Yeah. So the
Landy Hoth plays Armageddon. Oath Peluche plays both.
Flippy's Weenie still also plays Armageddon.
I gotta look at this deck.
So, it's just not a good time.
Waterfront Bouncer? Reverent Mantra?
Well, go ahead and read it from the top.
Okay. Philip Bame playing Blue-White Weenie. Blue-White Flippy. 2 Mother of Runes, the strategic number of Mother of Runes. 2 Silver Knight. 2 Waterfront Bouncer. 2 Weathered Wayfarer. 3 Exalted Angel. 4 Meddling Mage. I hate every one of those numbers except for the Meddling Mages. 1 Factor Fiction.
For the grindy matchups.
1 Monoleak. 1 Predict. I think we could have done better than that.
There's Memory Lapse, so...
1 Reverent Mantra, 2 Disenchant, 3 Memory Lapse, 3 I hate Prohibit. I hate it.
Well, this deck doesn't make that much blue mana, so...
4 Swords of Plowshares, 1 Armageddon, 1 Worship, 3 Standstill. This is just... Why did you describe this as a Savannah Lions deck?
There's Savannah Lions in there, right?
There's no Savannah Lions.
Okay, so the people I was playing against must have been fusing the Euro Champs Savannah Lions decks with these innovations.
1 Coastal Tizour, 1 Dust Bowl, 1 Sports Haven, 1 Skycloud Expanse, 2 Island, 3 Plains, 3 Wasteland,
Wasteland's super good with Savannah Lands. I question it in the absence of a 1-mana beer.
4 Edarkar Waste, 4 Flooded Strand, 4 Mishra's Factory. I'm definitely making this deck. I'm definitely gonna take this deck to a 2-2 at my next meetup.
We'll play it right now. We'll play it right after this recording.
It would take me at least an hour to put this together from the boxes.
It's just land still with rando creatures.
How long do you think it's going to take me to find Silver Knight, Waterfront Bouncer, Weathered Wayfarer, and Mother of Runes?
It's long.
That's going to take a while.
I have them in my Premodern box, but you have them in the box.
I should just make a Premodern box. Huh?
It's about time, yeah.
So, 1 Galena's Knight. Why is Silver Knight the right main deck card, but Galena's Knight is the right sideboard card? Are you worried about...
Galena's Knight is slightly easier to cast.
Yeah, but one of them would... If you're not playing 7 copies or something, one of them is typically going to be better than the other. And the matchup that you're bringing Galena's Knight in as the redundant, let's call it third Silver Knight, it's unlikely the opponent's going to have Meddling Mage, and they would Meddling Mage Silver Knight or
I don't have the answer for you. I don't have the answer.
2 Hibernation. I love the Hibernations. 1 Armageddon.
You love Hibernation?
I love it. Nobody ever see it coming. 1 Teferi's Response. 1 Stabilizer.
Let's go. Your Meddling Mage deck is going to have so much trouble.
He knew he was going to play against Jens Jaeger in the finals. 1 Root Water Thief. 1 Exalted Angel, thank God. 2 Annul. 1 Worship. 2 Crimson Acolyte. And I don't know what this card is. 2 Mana Maze.
Mana Maze is 2 and a U. Players
1 and a U.
1 and a U. Players can't cast a spell that shares a color with the last spell played this turn. So it's an Arcane Lab, but just against mono red, mono blue, and mono green. And of course, mono black and mono white, but those don't exist.
So Yen's deck is, I think you can get behind this. Similar. Semi-Turbo Platypus is the name of his deck. 1 Weathered Wayfarer, 3 Exalted Angel, same as Flippy. 3 Silver Knight, so he's up the Silver Knight count by 1. 4 Meddling Mage, 4 Mother of Runes, thank God, 4 Savannah Lion.
Yeah, okay. So that's the one that people are net decking against me, crushing the Replenish matchup.
1 Factory Fiction, 1 Stifle, though I don't know why there's a Stifle.
Stifle the fetch. Wasteland your first land, Stifle your fetch.
Okay.
Get him.
2 Disenchant, 2 Prohibit, 3 Mana Leak, 4 Swords, 1 Armageddon, 3 Standstill. He's got Fairy Conclave times 1, 2 Island, 4 Outer... This Fairy Conclave Island Silver Knight is going to take...
It's not a good time,
It's take me a minute to wrap my head around this. 4 Edarkar Waste, 4 Flooded Strand, 4 Mishra's Factory, 4 Wasteland, 5 Plains. I think you're probably right about this Stifle angle.
Yeah.
Radically different sideboard.
So, quick aside, Wasteland is like so bad because we don't have Delver, but Savannah Lions and Goblin Lackey are like the 2 best Delver impressions that we have in Premodern.
So this deck's got this. Listen to this sideboard. This sounds like a cohesive sideboard to me, ish. 3 Cursed Totem, 1 Aura of Silence, 1 Exalted Angel, thank God. 4 Annul into it.
Yeah, Annul's great.
2 Armageddon, 1 Circle of Protection red, 2 Blue Elemental Blast, 1 Hydroblast. How do you feel about Circle of Protection red in this deck? Would you just want blasts? Just pressure on blue mana?
I don't know. I would want Worship because we're just doing the Silver Knight thing.
Yeah, I think Worship's better than a 1 cop red. I think that I would make one of these decks. There's a Stifle Knot in the top 4. Looks like
blue-black, I think.
No, it's 14 Island, 4 Lotus Petal.
Oh, right. It's classic.
This guy is on the edge.
Yeah.
14 Island.
We're just sending the turn 1 Dreadnoughts here.
4 Peak.
To support your turn 1 Dreadnought. You go land, Lotus Petal. Sorry. This is the line. Island, Peak, Coast is clear, Lotus Petal, combo.
Listen to this. Do you know what an Intervene is?
I love Intervene. Intervene is instant counter target spell that targets a creature. You can counter your opponent's Rancors.
So this claims to have a reality shift, which is
reality ripple. Yeah,
it must be a ripple because this is a
deck jar,
some kind of a Commander Legends.
Okay, let's just move along. What do we think?
3 foil, 3. How do you not play 4 Gush?
Yeah,
3 foil, 3 Gush, 4 counterspell, 4. This makes no sense.
It's just an experiment in how many cards you can take out of Mono Blue Dreadnought and still have it top 8.
Still have a cohesive deck.
Yeah, it's just like it works. Like, turns out you really only need like the first 30 cards, and you can just like
the rest
use
of them.
use AI randomizers to like figure out the rest of the slot and just like still.
I mean, I was
top
into
beta
Peak. I
tournament.
tried Peak. It was not very good.
Okay, I didn't know you tried Peak. You tried like one copy in Mono Blue, right?
I tried Peak. Remember, I thought that Portent was worse than Sleight of Hand.
I do remember that.
I was wrong. You want them both, but Sleight of Hand's better than Impulse, unless you're playing with Brain Freeze sideboard, which this player did not play. And even then, I think there's an argument to be made for it. You know, what was really impressive to me was David, who's going to the finals of the Fall Brawl. He played a lot of Flash of Insight. If you're gonna
Flash of Insight technology was very impressive. You missed this, but when he was playing against Robin on Grotog in the quarterfinals, he would Flash of Insight for 20, and then he would shorthand write down all the cards he was stacking to the bottom of his library. So his second Flash of Insight would get him to the meat that he put on the bottom of his library.
Oh, yeah,
so he'd go Flash of Insight for 20, stack the bottom 22 cards in my deck, and then Flash of Insight for like 10 again to get to those 20 cards that he put on the bottom.
A big enough Flash of Insight is just
stack your entire
is a
deck.
demonic tutor followed by Limdol's Fall.
Followed by a recross the paths, if you will, when you have no lands in your deck, a card that's getting play in Modern that if you have no lands in your deck, you got to stack your entire deck. So yeah, I mean,
How do you prove that?
how do you what?
Prove that you haven't got lands.
You reveal cards from the top of your library. So it's like a whole thing.
How do you feel about a Red Bull?
How do I feel about a Red Bull?
I have so much Red Bull.
I don't want a Red Bull.
Okay.
I try not to drink artificial caffeine situation.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I like Red Bull. I've liked Red Bull, but I'll just drink coffee if I can help it. But I'm also just good on all fronts.
Okay.
We're hosting in the in-person podcast, a rare in-person.
Our last podcast was in
in-person. Yeah. The audio was a little sketchy, but hopefully it works better this time.
So this misdirection I'm into, I would try this deck. I think in my old age I've softened about how bad Mono Blue Dreadnought is.
In your old age, like 2 months later, just like
soften.
I mean, Lotus Petal is a hella drug. I think if you're gonna play Mono Blue, you might as well just play Lotus Petal because, like, you know.
I mean,
whatever.
I like the Lotus Petal in blue red. I mean, it was a necessary evil in blue red.
I mean, at this point, you just run Mox Diamond in blue red.
Why? These decks have no ability to interact with the battlefield. I can't. How do you have?
It's just mulligan.
Like how do you mulligan past their second turn meddling?
I had you just mulligan to turn one Dreadnought. That gets past their second turn meddling mage.
And then there's no sideboard card like a boomerang. A waterfront bouncer would go a long way.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I do not contest. I mean, you know, hand it to the pilot. They made it the top 8 of a national tournament. You know, something that both podcasters here have accomplished, but only one time for what it's worth. So we'll just have to wait and see as the Dreadnought meta continues to shake out. I think people are also just like it's so boring. I think the United States players are more entertained by just copy pasting the latest blue-white Dreadnought and just like playing it and winning very easily. Right?
I mean, so, Dave Kaplan never loses ever.
Kaplan keeps losing in the quarterfinals, which is not.
And he's
something
winning the Magic Online Society tournament.
Yeah, he's doing great in Magic Online Society.
And now he's a Magic coach.
Yeah, that's true. Shout out Dave Kaplan. You had I think it was Nathan Merhefke. He was the player who made the second place, being felled by Sam Black in the Misty Cup. The last Misty Cup, of course, there was no Dreadnought. That was just the Survival Welder meta, which I don't even know if Survival Welder is good against Dreadnought, but who knows? But yeah, I mean, players play blue-white pretty happily.
Survival must be amazing against Dreadnought. If they have another artifact in their graveyard, you can just...
The only other artifact they would have is like another Dreadnought, so...
Or like a powder keg that they blew up if they're...
They wouldn't have powder keg if they're blue-white.
Oh, if they're blue-white.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I think only like 2 people played Dreadnought in like the 50-person tournament, which is kind of strange.
I'm gonna ask you a question. If you read a deck and it was called Threshold, what Threshold cards do you think might be present in it?
I would guess that the Threshold cards would be Werebear and Nimble Mongoose and maybe 2 copies of Mystic Enforcer. End of list.
Or maybe some lands even, right? Like something along the lines of Cephalid Coliseum, whatever those colors are.
Sure.
As far as I could tell, there's not a single threshold card in this deck.
Well,
it's just Oath Pollution. It's like 2 Exalted Angel, 4 Terravore.
Heckin' bamboozled by Oath Pollution. So the Cataclysmic Oath Pollution deck has not changed form across countries everywhere in the monthlies. Every deck pick I see is like just the same deck: 4 Terravore, 2 Angel, 4 Oath, 3 Sylvan Library, 4 Port, 4 Wasteland.
So this deck only has 27 lands to make room for a main deck Enlightened Tutor. And I don't know if you know what this card is. I'm going to tell you a card. Words of Wilding.
Oh, I know Words of Wilding. That's 2 and a G. The 2 and a G words that makes a bear when you skip your draw for 1 mana. So combo with Sylvan Library.
So that's how. So you can make bears.
You make 3 bears. You just skip all 3 draws. So you just like Sylvan Library.
And you don't have to put anything back?
You don't have to put anything back because you didn't draw anything.
What if I make 2 bears and draw a card?
Then you have to put your card back.
Oh, really?
Or pay 4 life.
I'm not doing that. I'm making 3 bears.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just making 3 bears.
Goldilocks in this thing.
I mean, you were complaining that Oath Pollution did not have any exit game besides attacking with Treetop Village, which you hated. So this is your end game. You just play Words of Wilding and then make unlimited 2/2s. Since then, Fran has talked heavily. I've talked heavily about trimming or cutting moxes. Fran considered 3.
There's 4 moxes.
I'm considering 2. There's 4 moxes. I mean, everyone else has been playing 4 moxes. Because mox is just like... I mean, it's just baffling, this deck that produces no card advantage outside of Cataclysm.
It doesn't make any sense.
And Sylvan Library runs 4 moxes so that you have an incredible early game draw. Like, don't get me wrong. As a mox aficionado myself, there's nothing better than playing a 2-drop on turn 1 in Premodern. It's just nothing. Like, it's just nothing you do. Make 2 mana on turn 1. It's like absolutely insane. And then the rest of the game, you're just drawing these blanks, and it's hilarious. I mean, the synergy is obvious with cards like Cataclysm and the sideboard Armageddon. Like, Mox plus Cataclysm is good. My argument is just like, so many times you have like Sphere of Resistance in play, and you Cataclysm, and if you choose between your Sphere and your Mox, and obviously you want both, and obviously you can just like look at your situation and be like, okay, well, I want the Mox because I'm going to save like Mox Treetop, get a land drop, start attacking with Treetop, or I want to save Sphere because I have a creature in play, and then they'll just be under Sphere.
Well, yeah,
but I'm just like...
If you choose Sphere, it's real hard for them to plow your Terravore.
Exactly. I mean, it's not impossible if they've been sandbagging lands. But I don't know. My end point is just kind of like, well, why Cataclysm, save your Sphere, sacrifice your Mox, which you invested 2 cards into, when you should be not playing Mox in the first place. Just like sandbag some lands.
How do you feel about Exploration?
I hate Exploration.
You hate Exploration?
I like Exploration if your deck has like 4 Mulch, 4 Gush, 4 land tax. I don't know, does Exploration
does
just...
this deck have any meat, or it's just
it's just lands.
It's all wind.
No, okay, so it's 45 lands, 4 Mulch, 4 Gush, 4 Standstill, and 4 Exploration, and 4 Horn of Greed. Why not? I like Exploration with Horn of Greed. I don't like Exploration and Horn of Greed in any deck because I don't like when my opponent gets to draw cards. Because every single time of Horn of Greed ever has been played against me, I play a land, I draw a card, and I cast Disenchant. And my opponent's just very sad.
It's like, this is the kind of format, I was playing Tom Martell when he was visiting. And, he was on Oath Pollution, I was on Goblins, and I'm like, this is a pretty bad matchup for me. It's like, it's a good matchup for him. It's not super bad for me. And he had first turn Oath, and I had Naturalize. It's like, that's how this format is. I'm like, you're going to get hit by my lackey.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, wow. That matchup went 3. It was a great match. I think that I would not have lost to almost any, let's call them Premodern players. But a Pro Tour champion got
Pro
me.
Tour champions?
Yeah, he's just like, I have to take this line attack with everything. He's like, if you have any goblin here, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Right? But, like any goblin that you can cast, right? Because he knew one of the cards in my hand.
Right.
So I didn't draw it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm a bazillion ways to get you to 1.
Yeah.
Need to get you to 0. He's like,
just those burn donkeys that deal 19 damage. You're a 19 damage goblin donkey.
But if I was playing against an average Premodern player, I would have gotten another turn because he wouldn't have gone all in the previous turn, probably.
Yeah.
So
Metelsky would go all in. Metelsky's a huge fan of Maiden too.
Goes very all in.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked you about exploration was last night I played in a meetup.
Yeah.
It was great.
Brewery meetup, yeah.
A brewery meetup. I'd actually been there before. I didn't realize. Well, Sonny is an investor in this, but I'd actually been there before because I knew somebody who is in the comedy scene, and they have comedy on Wednesdays. Apparently, Premodern on Fridays.
Perfect.
So, but I just didn't recognize the name of the brewery, right? So I would have thought of it as like a bar or a club, but apparently it's a brewery. But it looks like a bar or a club.
Beer's so hot right now.
So anyway, so we go first round. I'm playing elves, and I go, first turn Findhorn elf, right? My opponent, SWB, who won the previous, because that's actually one of the things I wanted to focus on. I know that we had a lot of Savannah Lions talk or whatever, but I wanted to focus on this matchup perspective. He won the previous meetup at Bifrost with Mono Green. I call it Mono Green Oath Peluche, but it's not really.
Yeah, Peluche. It's not a Peluche. But it's funny to say Peluche at the end of everything, because it's just
Mono Green Oath, right?
It's just fun to say.
So I want to talk about this, but I'll talk about it in a second. So he goes first turn, Mox. So I'm like, oh, how bad can this be? With this Mox, he plays an exploration.
Yeah.
Then he plays 2 forests.
Yeah.
Then he plays an oath. Then he says go. And I'm like, I got this, right?
Yeah, you just expended 5 cards to make 3 mana on turn 1 and do nothing with it. That's my attitude towards exploration.
Yeah, so he has a Mox, an exploration, 2 lands, but he has an oath.
Oh, okay.
It's also 6 cards. You discard 1 to the Mox.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. So it's 2 lands, an exploration, a Mox, and a land, and then your end state is 3 mana in play.
Yeah, so...
But if you have an oath, then it just solves all
So in my
your
head,
problems.
I'm like, he's just a Terra Board. It's not a big deal, right? Like, I'm going to go through. Like, my hand's pretty good, right? Like, it's not,
just jam.
It's not unbeatable. I'm just going to go through. So I draw, and I make, like, a respectable series of lists. Maybe, like, I don't know, Kyrian Dryad or something, right? Some Kyrian Ranger and, a Symbiote. I'm like, all right, I'm going to gear up for, like...
Yeah, sorry, I forgot you're playing elves, not goblins, but yeah.
So I'm going to gear up for, like, Cradle. I mean, we're going to get there, right?
Right.
And I had a Wall of Roots, and I'm like, okay, I can block this thing, right? So his last card was a Mulch, and his Terravor he passed the turn with on turn 2 was a 19/19.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't have the resources for a 3rd turn kill.
Yeah.
That means I'm dead, right? So I'm like, so I'm just doing this on a Cradle, Wall of Roots, and I'm like, shoot, because I think I did a point of damage to myself with like a Wooded Foothills to get my first forest, and I'm like, this is going to be really close. But then he goes, like, Windswept Heath, break it, Dust Bowl your Cradle.
Yeah, just like 23/23.
Yeah,
turn
like it was
4.
And
turn 4,
he obviously oaths up a second Terravor.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
so
I have to win on turn 3,
yeah.
But I didn't, right? But I won the next 2. I like the mono green version. I particularly liked it because when it won the previous meetup. So I brought my Oath Peluche deck that I lent to Tom to play in the tournament. He beat me with goblins. And he's like, this deck's pretty good. I'm like, what's it bad against? And I said,
nothing.
It's bad against the mono green version. He's like, that's not even possible. I'm like, I don't know, man.
And then he played against the mono green version.
Yeah, I've seen this play out a bunch. I think the mono green version's got here. And he's like, no way, right? So he gets 2-0'd badly by the mono green version. But his analysis was like, if your opponent knows anything about how to play, they almost can't lose. Like, all they have to do is pin your white mana.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, if they have Dust Bowl,
Dust Bowl, Port Wasteland,
Thermokarst, and
Winter's Grasp,
all just against 3 planes.
Yeah,
and like 4 active duels and 4, like, I guess like 6 active duels.
Windswept Heath doesn't count, but it's just like 3. No, it's not even that. So there's 2 or 3 brush lands.
2 Trevis Ruins are the equivalent.
Yeah.
And then
those aren't surviving.
3 planes, 4 Mox.
Yeah.
It's just like, all they have to do is pin your white. Like, you can't cast your angel. The other thing is, like, all of your breakers are symmetrical, right?
Yeah.
So they can play around them really well. And so his thought process is like, I'm just going to plow the Terravor. And the opponent's thought process is, you're never going to cast plow.
Yeah. Well, you just have to hold the planes.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing is that strategy doesn't even really work because the oaths are asymmetrical because you might hit an Exalted Angel and they can only hit giant Terravors.
Yeah, they can only hit big Terravors.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's really, I was shocked at, Tom quickly as a Pro Tour champion and pretty good Magic player, he quickly figured out all these things. He's just like, oh wow, this matchup is really bad.
Yeah.
Right. And he chose to draw in game 2 because he's like, oh, this is a resource matchup.
Yeah.
SWB played a first turn Black Vice.
Yeah, get him.
Yeah. So it was interesting in my match that I played with him. I saw a Gaia's Blessing at some point, and he told me after, he's like, "Oh, on the podcast you talked about transforming this into Shark
Phoenix Excellent, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh wow, you just never got it. And Rebel was like joking. She's just like, every time he had Oath, you just top deck natural. I'm like, I certainly did.
Yeah.
So I got that match in 3. Elves is really good, even if you're not that good. I would have been kicked out of the Non-Idiots group like 3 times for my level of play with Elves last night. But
as most non-Oles or Pablos would in this world.
Well, so here are 2 of my notable mistakes. One, I set up SWB for double deranged Hermit, like fast kill. But like neither, so Rebel came and sat down next to me. She didn't notice it. He didn't notice it either because they don't know what my game plan was. I didn't realize I had sided out one of my 2 my 2 Hermits. So
it's like when I didn't sideboard in a Chroma.
Yeah, so that didn't work. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to get a Symbiote instead. But now I don't have enough mana because like I needed my Cradle to work, and I'm like, ugh, I can't bounce this.
I'm sure that you had a line that you didn't see that was like neither of those 2 things.
Oh, if I had realized I didn't have both Hermits in my deck, I would have gotten Kamal.
Yeah.
Right, but I didn't realize because I'm like, right. So, but I didn't realize that. I'm like, oh, this is just a clean kill with 2 Hermits, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I was so far ahead that I just won the next turn.
Yeah.
But because he didn't get to his Shark Phoenix. So I said to him, well, if you're going to make this modification that I talked about on the podcast, why did you still have Windswept Heath? Because Wooded Foothills actually now makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I mean, it's not crucial to hardcast the Phoenix, because
I mean,
you have Moxes and you have Ruins, so it's just kind of like whatever. And Windswept Heath is obviously better than. Oh, you're singing for Mono Green.
Mono Green, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little different. Okay.
No, then
it's a free roll.
Also, it's more or less a free roll. B, the more important thing is you need to be able to operate in the games where your opponent disenchants Oath. If you can now suddenly cast and rebuy your Phoenix in games,
well, you never want to rebuy it. You like never want to rebuy it.
I think that there are certainly cases where you'd want to rebuy.
I'm telling you, as a seasoned Shard Phoenix player that has had like total, I've had 9 red sources in my Shard Phoenix decks between Gemstone Mine, Mox Diamond, Underscared. No, I've had 13 red sources in my Shard Phoenix deck.
Yeah, and
I have like rebought Shard Phoenix like 2 times total.
Yeah, but you're like a jerk with white manipulation cards, right? Like,
well, I have scroll rack, so
this
is
a
mono
different. Green deck that might get their Oath.
No, I got you. Okay, so let's skip forward one more. Why not show up to game 1 and just be a mono green Oath control deck that wins with Manlands, Mana Denial, and only uses Oath in prison mode for Shard Phoenix, like Shard Phoenix Chosen or whatever.
But so here's the thing. I think the mono green deck is like even more of a paper tiger than Oath Peluche. You need to win quickly, right? Because like,
so not with the newest innovation in mono green technology, they've started to run Smokestack as your closer. So you have all these permanents that are horrible, like Exploration. So you just smokestack them away.
But this is really just like we have no advantages. We're just throwing our crap that we put in our deck into the trash can. The advantage
is the deck is 50 permanents. Every single card in the deck is a permanent. And Smokestack is already naturally advantaged because they sacrifice first, and you're +1 because the Smokestack sacrificed to itself. So I had it done to me.
And I guess this is in particular, so you can get
this is like the best Smokestack deck I've ever seen in Premodern, and it took them 18 months for this innovation.
The last 2 words really put I think I own 4. How many Smokestacks do I need to own?
I don't know, probably 2.
I own enough Smokestacks.
Yeah,
but that's like an expensive card because it's played in like Legacy, right?
No, it's not played in any format. It's played in EDH by people who hate fun.
I thought the deck was called Stacks because of Smokestack.
Yeah, there's no stack in Legacy anymore. There just isn't. there is no stacks
because of
deck.
Modern Horizons 2.
No, just because I don't think there's been a stacks deck for a long time. I don't even know the last time Smokestack was cast in Vintage, where you can cast it off Mishra's Workshop. I mean, whatever. Phone into the podcast. Let us know what the most recent stacks deck. The stacks deck in Legacy is Death and Taxes. So it's just
just like a white weenie deck.
Yeah, it's just an Ether Vial Thalia deck. And it sometimes has, like, Sphere of Resistance sometimes plays in Legacy. You can cast it off Ancient Tomb. Smokestack costs 4 mana.
Wackadoodle to me. Like, obviously some of these cards are powerful. Like, a Sphere of Resistance makes life annoying for you if you're a 12-12 deck, right? I've only played Sphere of Resistance in one Sanctioned Tournament in my entire life, and it was a 9-round PTQ that I won. Like, so I'm like, I have some respect for the card, but it's just like its entire strategy is like 3 casting cost Stone Rains and symmetrical stuff, right? Like,
yeah, it's hilarious. That's the fun part. Is it's the stupid, like, the deck is like really good at like stopping decks that don't do anything for 2 turns, and then. But it's like a landslide matchup against those decks. Like if you're not playing, I mean, and then Oath just kind of shores up decks that do things. So it's like, I don't know, like these Oath decks, both Oath Peluche and Mono Green, are like one of the things. My first criticism, like I just like look at these decks, like like these decks can't be as resilient as they are because they just don't have blue mana. Yeah, they don't have blue mana. They don't have black mana, or like they don't have Grixis mana, right? Blue, black, and red just like give you... I mean, obviously white's insane. So Oath Peluche is insane because he gets the one source of Plowshares. But it's just like, okay, well, you don't have Engineered Plays. Like Oath does a good Engineered Play compulsion. You don't have, blue card draw. It's like, okay, well, Sylvan Library in these decks like ends up drawing 4, and then the rest of the time you just fetch to Brainstorm away. So Sylvan somehow does a card advantage impression. Like, so much so that everyone just cut Mulch from all of these decks. Like, just, like, the Mono Green Cabal is just like, yeah, the Mulch is a horrible card. I actually do think Mulch is a horrible card, which we can get into.
I love Mulch.
I know it's the core of Landy Hoth, and I think...
We have, like...
You have a bunch of lands, but
we have, like,
I would posit that... Well, yeah, Scroll Rack changes things, but then it's like Scroll Rack plus Mulch is, like, so... It's, like, so good, but, like, the individual parts are so bad.
It took me so much practice to get
to just like even put things in the right order.
To know how to do this correctly.
Yeah.
So like you're just like, oh, I have these 2 cards, and I was like, oh, this is an intuitive combo, which it is, right? If you have
to like finagle the 4 lands.
If you have not practiced it,
yeah.
you are going to F it up.
Yeah.
And I practiced it a lot.
Well, it's like end step, I put 2 lands down, draw one of the lands for turn, and then put 4 lands on top, and then cast the Mulch.
Yeah,
and then I'm like, oh, I have 9 cards in hand, so I'm going to hand size 2 lands.
No, then you just like play your Mox or whatever.
Your 1 copy Mox. Anyways.
Throw a Plow out there.
The reason why I hate Mulch is because...
Let's say your opponent has a Cloud of Fairies. So you have to plow it.
All right, Mulch. Mulch is an unacceptable card when it draws 1. It's like unacceptable to draw 1, right? So even if you're on 30 lands, sometimes you're going to draw 1. It is a super mid, like, it's not a card. I would not cast a card that every single time you cast it just said 1 in a G, like, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, you would.
Like,
people pay 2 life to cast Night's Whisper.
I mean,
this would be much better.
No, they draw 2 lands.
No, but it also bins 2 cards. Like, you could be binning a guy's...
But you're super... I mean, you don't have deep analysis in your deck, so, like...
Dude, I think that your analysis of Mulch is a little hard.
So draw two is, like, horrible. Draw 3 and draw 4 is obviously crazy. But the fact that draw 1 is so bad... Like, this is my gripe, right?
I've drawn 0.
So, drawing 0 is just... You literally just, like, lose the game on the spot. So that's, like... You think Enlightened Tutor is bad. No, so Mulch... So draw 0 and draw 1 are just so bad. And draw 2 is just like so okay. Like it doesn't impact the game enough, right? It's like you're not gonna like draw 2 on Mulch, like cast a Mox Diamond, and then do anything that matters. And like this is like fundamentally
Landy Hoth is a sit there deck.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean,
Landy Hoth.
I forgot you don't like to play decks that don't just go.
Yeah, just do things. Yeah. So okay, well,
sometimes you gotta sit.
Super. Well, one, you correctly identified that Mox was bad in Landy Hoth because it's a sit there deck. It doesn't use its mana every turn, or like the best it does is sinks it into a Treetop Village. And I hate using Mox in decks that don't tap all their lands every single turn, right? Because like, what's the point of accelerating if you're just gonna like play the Mox and then pass, right? That's like dumb AF. So anyways, I think mulch is super bad. Like draw 0 is obviously a catastrophe. Draw 1 is bad. Draw 2 is like okay. And then draw 3 is like great and like only happens, whatever, 15% of the time or something. Folks at home can do the math. Like, I don't vibe with mulch. I'll vibe with, and the other thing is like you just compare mulch to Factor Fiction.
Costs half as much.
Factor Fiction is instance, but basically free.
That's not how that works.
If you're gonna pass the turn with mana, then you might as well Factor Fiction.
Okay, mulch decks don't have counter spells for one thing.
I know that's another problem, and then there's also this card Gush, which it's just like there's this card Standstill. I don't even heard it. Like
your mulch analysis is terrible. Have you ever cast mulch and then you flipped over like Treetop Village Wasteland Dust Bowl or something? Your opponent's just destroyed.
You are going to be so slow to like utilize this advantage.
No,
like that's
I'm
the
not.
other problem is like you're so unbelievably slow to like
It's a slow
do
deck.
things. Anyways,
I'm not the one who went to time every round at LobsterCon.
mulch is horrible. It's a horrible like it just doesn't do a good impression of an engine. And of course, as I speak, Rich Shea has completed yet another X1 in the monthly, playing a deck that swapped his Gush engine for a mulch engine so that he can diversify his mana base and be a green-white deck splashing blue. So now he's just splashing blue into the Landy Hoth shell.
He's playing Landy Hoth with Zer's Weirding, right?
Landy Hoth with Zer's Weirding, Words of Worship lock.
Yeah. So you can't even be Zerzed if you have that.
Yeah, you just replace your draw with 5 life,
just
and then you just Zer's your opponent
filthy.
But it's got Sylvan Library Abundance, it's got Skull Rack Sylvan Library, it's got Skull Rack Mulch.
This sounds great.
He posted the deck list.
I'm just gonna. Did he post it in? Did he post it in Non-Idiots?
I don't know. He posted it in like 3 different places.
I think he posted it in Non-Idiots.
I can't keep track. Probably did. But anyways, going back to this thing, I'm looking at these green Oath decks, and like one, Oath is disgusting, right? Oath is 1,000 for one. It's just like a mega super moat, which like, it's a moat if your opponent has no creatures. If your opponent has a creature, it's a show and tell, or like, one-sided show and tell from your deck. So it's Entomb, it's like Entomb Animate Dead all in one. Like, and then if that card is Terravore, you just like win. So it's 1,000 show and tell briberies. I don't know. Anyways, it's like 1,000 creatures. It's like every creature from your deck, if your opponent has a creature in play. Your opponent doesn't have a creature in play. Stops your opponent from playing any creatures. So like Oath is so powerful. And the rest of these decks it just doesn't matter because it's just like Oath, right? There's like, oh, well, what if your opponent doesn't turn on Oath? It's like, okay, well, if your opponent doesn't turn on Oath, our deck is all Spear Resistance, Rishon Port Wasteland, and Stone Rains or Cataclysm. And then, like, that's all your advantage. And then you also have, like, Sylvan if your opponent doesn't turn on Oath. Because, like, if they're not a deck that turns on Oath, then they turn on Sylvan, and you just draw 4 from Sylvan. Your opponent never recovers from that.
What if you just did both because you have Exalted Angel?
Exactly. So, everything just ends up super neat, and then what happens is just like, you're just like, what are the bad matchups for this deck? And you're just kind of like, okay, well, you kind of have game.
Red deck
is super good against both. Don't get me wrong, red deck's insane against
Goblins
both.
is good against mono green.
Goblins is definitely decent against mono green. Obviously, you can get Mox Oath, but yeah,
Goblins is pretty good against green white, but that's a very either side can win.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Goblins is good when it's good. Like if you like the Lackey draw is good against the Oath draw, and obviously Lackey on the play will just win you straight up. So those are all things to consider. But other than that, like your Mopey, like, you're super good again. Like Oath is like doing the opposite of Engineered Plague, where it's like punishing Call the Herd only. Like it doesn't punish Goblin Lackey or Priest of Titania. It only punishes Call the Herd, which is why I think it's bullshit, because it should be the other way around. Like my unfair card should be punishing the similarly unfair bullshit that my opponent's doing.
So what do we think of as being the unfair card? Goblin Lackey
is super unfair. Priest of Titania or Wirewood Symbiote are like both kind of unfair. I mean, Priest is like 2 mana, so it's
It's a really good card in that deck is Kamal. I'm just wondering, maybe we should just play more Kamals. It's so good.
I mean, you don't need to play more Kamal.
So did you watch? I did commentary.
Yeah. I watched the green white elves from Mike Arnold.
Yeah, Mike Arnold basically just
cast them all.
won the games by just.
That's his only
come
option,
off.
of course, because he doesn't have anchor, so he can't just win games by casting 3 hermits.
Yeah. But he did it right, and like
I was like literally watching that game, and like he has everything. He has priest, he has cradle, and it's just like he has to pass the turn. He's just like he can make 1,000 mana, and he has to pass the turn.
I mean,
he can't make 1,000 mana because his stuff doesn't have anchor.
The thing that is bothersome to me is that I don't know that his deck is better in very many matchups. I think maybe it's better than like regular sort of red-green elves against the red deck.
For the listeners at home, this is Mike Arnold's green-white elves, which plays 3 copies of Armageddon, supported by 2 Brushland, Birchlore Rangers, and Windswept Heath.
So it has a card in the sideboard that we were talking about.
Absolute.
I was really excited about Absolute Law. But I just don't necessarily know that it's better than the red-green version, even against red deck, because now, instead of all those goofball lands and Birchlore Rangers, you could just play Natural Order and get a Neshoba, or a game 1 you can get a Verdant Force.
Yeah,
that seems very good. I mean, even Caffeinated would be afraid of a 3rd turn Neshoba.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that one, it doesn't even have to come down on the third turn, because if the burn opponent is sending at least burn spells at your creatures for like 1 or 2 turns.
Your life total's high enough.
Your life total is high enough that your Neshoba can be on turn 5. Well, I worked towards like a turn 7 Neshoba or whatever against my last burn opponent when I played the Natural Order Elves for the first time.
Well, the other thing that's actually pretty substantial in this implementation of Phantom Neshoba is simply that because you have Mountain and Anger.
Yeah, it just sends.
It comes down and you just go +7.
I mean, if you're on Mountain and Anger, though, you've gotten like so much has gone right for you. Like you've had survival, mana to operate survival, and like an extra creature around for you to natural order.
If you're Ole, that doesn't even mean that you win, right? Like you could still die with all that stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean it's. Anyways, it's I don't know, why are we here? Because we're talking about green-white elves versus green-red elves. I mean, the combo elf deck is obviously just completely bananas, basically because of the Hermit Feb game we saw, where it's just like you want to be able to kill your opponent that turn all the time, right? Like a Hermit Feb opponent could be in a position where an Armageddon doesn't stop them because the Hermit combo costs 1G and an Unearth in hand, which is just GB. So a Birds of Paradise and a land drop, fights against Armageddon. I still think Armageddon's good against Hermit Feb, but what's better against Hermit Feb is winning on turn 3, or even Tangle Wire, right? Tangle Wire is going to get more leverage,
or even just like having the card Goblin Sharpshooter in your deck, right?
Yeah.
You can pick off Hermits.
I mean, Tangle Wire does an Armageddon impression for 2 turns anyways, so it's just kind of like, why not build? That's kind of the bottom end of it. It's just like we're not even sure about running the Tangle Wires in elves, so it's just like, what does Armageddon do? Like, what does Armageddon do that Tangle Wire didn't do?
I think the plus is he gets Absolute Law out of the sideboard, that's really significant. I think that's maybe better help against goblins.
I mean, I'm down to run Birchlore Rangers and or Birds of Paradise, and basic planes if you really think it's that good. But it's like you also were not necessitated to cut Anger. So what you would have to do is like Elves is like a 16 or 17 land deck, sometimes 18, sometimes 19. So what you could do is make Elves a 21 land deck to fit in your planes, and
cut Well-Wisher.
Swap. Yeah, it's cut it where, I mean, you've already cut the nonsense. You're cutting Tangle Wires, right? If you love
I don't have Tangle Wires.
These white cards so much, just like change the numbers around and play your stock Elves, and then just trade a Quirion Ranger for a Birchlore Ranger, and trade.
Quirion Ranger is too good, man.
Well, if you care about your white, then you don't have any. I mean, you can trade a Finhorn for Birchlore, but that's kind of
Quirion Ranger. The Quirion Ranger Wirewood Symbiote double untap set up my survival combo is too good.
But the thing is, that's searchable. So Quirion Ranger. So you're looking at basically, if you have survival, you have all the Quirions you need, right? But if you don't have survival, Quirion needs to hang with a mana guy, and then Birchlore can do the +1 mana impression if you have a Quirion, and you want Birchlore in there somewhere. But anyways, I don't want to argue about what we're trimming to fit our white splash into elves. I would just be more interested in just like, trying to craft a strategy. What I wanted to test later today, if we play Magic today, is I've been saying it that you just run 4 Wall of Blossoms instead of Wall of Roots in your Elves deck, and then maybe that alongside Natural Order could alter the Goblins matchup, because the Goblins matchup.
So you want to play
about
4 Wall of Roots and still 2 Natural Order, or 4 Natural Order?
I want to play 4 Natural Order main, because I'm just like, what's the point? I was like, I'll play 3 and then sideboard the 4th.
So
I'll just play the whole Natural Order package main. I was like, cut all the random stuff, because now you're just like doing stuff that's on plan, right? So you only have 1 gear. You only have 1 kind of gear, which is win the game. So you no longer have like, oh, I'm gonna go. I mean, I don't know. You probably move Masticore to sideboard because you're running out of space. Probably move all but 1 Hermit to sideboard, and then you're just playing
the card that
gear 1 and 1.5.
The card that I side out the most is Multani's Acolyte.
Yeah, but I hate that, because that's your only other gear besides Kill Them. Is okay, they've answered your stuff, so you go for Acolyte Grind, and then that's like a...
You can only Acolyte Grind if you have a symbiote.
Well, if you go Survival and you have like...
Okay, we're not going to have a conversation about what I can do if I have a Survival.
But if you have Survival, so what you can do is you play Survival, that turn they could have the Disenchant, and if you only have like 3 mana up or whatever, then you just put together your Acolyte. Yeah,
those 2 cards.
Granted, if that's your plan, you can sideboard out some number of Acolyte. But the thing is, Acolyte's a big payoff for Symbiote, because all Symbiote does is make mana and protect from plows if you don't have Acolyte. So it's just like, are you boarding out Symbiotes too?
No, why would I ever board out Symbiote?
Exactly. So
Symbiote is a combo with Kamal.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, Acolyte makes your Symbiote more robust. Plus, Acolyte taps with your Birchlore Rangers for mana.
I haven't put Birchlore Rangers in the deck yet. Wait, so let's just sketch this out. So 4 Land Elf, 4 Findahorn Elf. I'm going to say 4 Symbiote, 4 Curian, 4 Priest, 4 Survival.
I don't know. We've already named 30 cards, so...
How do I have room for all these Wall of Blossoms and natural...
You just don't. You just
what am I natural ordering for, Kamal? I have to use 1 slot for a Verdant Force and cross my fingers?
Yeah, I mean, that's why you only run 2 main, and then you board in the Nishoba. But it's like, you want the Nishoba game 1. That's like what's so awkward. It's just like, you want the Nishoba game 1 against Goblins and Burn.
Last night I went 8-1 in games. I played a Verdant Force out of my hand in 1 game. I natural ordered for Verdant Force 0 times. The only card I natural ordered for the entire night was either Kamal or Drain Sherman.
Yeah, classic. Yeah.
So I didn't even...
Well, then you can just play 4 natural order and then just like always be getting Drain Sherman. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a 1 mana discount.
It's a 1 mana discount, but you're also like
costing you an extra
wall.
card.
You sacked a wall. That's why I'm saying Blossoms is still good.
So, I mean, but the thing is, like, the comfort level of being able to get that Verdant Force is a non-zero. Like,
we're playing the Verdant Force, and we're playing the Nishoba in our natural order, all in natural order, all in survival, backstop, Acolyte grind, but then just like no fun stuff.
No, we need to have a payoff in game 1. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me.
What are you talking about? What payoff? They're all in. They're all part of the team.
No, I thought those cards were on our sideboard.
No, we're just not running Genesis. We're just not running Genesis, Masticore. We're only running 1 Hermit, and we have to play Birchlore Ranger, so we can tap for white. I just ripped
the 1 Masticore to beat the Black Red Oath deck last night.
Yeah, but just do that in the post-board games.
Right? So, like, I would have I literally just would have lost to his Grim Lavamancer, but...
Fran played 3 total Masticores in the 75, 1 main, 2 side in his most recent
2 main, 1
league.
side, I think. I watched him play.
But yeah, he's not a fan of Sharpshooter.
Why? It's kind of like good.
Well, I feel like the 1 Sharpshooter, 2 Masticore is probably fine. You want to draw Masticore and survival of Sharpshooter, but who cares? Anyways, we will put this together, see how it feels, and report back.
That's what we're doing this afternoon.
That's what we're
I thought we were going to shoot archery.
I'm bailing on archery. I just want to play Magic. I've played so few matches of Premodern that like make my blood rush.
That's all we did for months was just play so much Premodern.
And I'm just like, I'm itching.
I, on the other hand, have played a bunch of Premodern.
Well, I haven't had the chance. Well, I've played in my league.
Yeah.
I got crushed and played Replenish, cut all the tides. Got crushed by Flippy Birds twice. And then defeated Blue-Red Dreadnought, Blue-Black Psychotog in the hands of Metelski, and Blue-Red Chance Encounter Control. So I played against
Chance Encounter.
So I played against 5 blue decks with my Replenish deck, and I took it to them 3 out of the 5 times with my Exalted Angel pivot plan, which is crazy good against them. Actually, I don't think I played Exalted Angel. Oh no, I did play. Obviously, I didn't know my opponent was blue-red. I got blue-redded again, where they just don't play any red cards game 1, so you think they're mono blue Dreadnought, and then game 2 they lead with like City of Brass, and you're just like, what is happening? Anyways, beat a bunch of blue decks, lost a bunch of blue decks, so I got that Premodern in. Played a casual game. I played 1 casual game against Food Chain Elves with Replenish, and like
Food Chain Elves.
Yeah.
What are these decks you're playing against?
That's what I'm telling you. I mean, people are just trying stuff out. Played against Food Chain Elves with Replenish, crushed them. Crushed 5-color control, 5-color blue control, like, you know, whatever, Factor Fiction plus Grand Colosseums and Guy's Blessings, and, you know, Plow's Bolts.
Is Grand
and
Colosseum the one that comes into play tap?
Yeah, it comes in play taps for everything, but can tap for colorless.
But it deals damage to you also.
1 damage, yeah. It's City of Brass, but it can tap for colorless for free.
That card doesn't
tap.
seem that bad.
Card's fine. So you play that card, play some Reflecting Pools, and then you've got all the mana. So what you do is you never tap your Grand Colosseum. You just have it in play. So your Reflecting Pool taps for 5, which is what my opponent was doing.
You can just tap it for colorless.
Yeah, you can tap for colorless. But I mean, opponents like playing Counterspell Forbid or whatever. Anyways, defeated that. So the Replenish deck is just like, I don't know, it's like so good at crushing like everything, except for freaking Flippy Birds, which I would play twice.
Wait, it doesn't seem very good against Dreadnought decks to me.
It's good against every Dreadnought deck except for blue-white.
That's the only one that matters.
That's not the one that people are playing on the streets. People are just playing blue-red and mono-blue and just like get them every time.
Wait, why do you think it's good against blue-red? I bet you if I were blue-red and you were Lanny Replenish, I would have
because I have a Bance, so I still beat your Bance.
Oh yeah.
So I know your plan is to get me down to 12
from?
in a fling. Michael J. Flores, noted non-idiot Michael J. Anyways, so I got those games in, but I'm just like thinking the entire time. I'm just like thinking about all this stuff. I'm thinking about all these matchups. The Hermit Feb stuff. Neither of us have Hermit Feb. David Tao's out of town. The only
I have Hermit Feb, and I could assemble it from the things that are in that box. It would take me more than an hour. The mana base would take a second.
Oh, the mana base needs to get put in 1 box.
Wait, what do you need? Do you need Underground River?
No, you need 4 Yavimaya Coast, 4 Llanowar Wastes.
So there's 4 Llanowar Wastes and 8 Yavimaya Coasts in the thing you're sitting on.
Yeah, and there's also rock. You just cannibalize the rock because it's all the rock cards. 4 Cabal Therapy.
Yeah, I only own 4 Cabal Therapy and 4 Llanowar Wastes, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Anyways, so
that's a filthy lie. I'm sure I own more than 4 new printing Llanowar Wastes.
Yeah, they're just in packs.
They're just somewhere. But they're not in the pre-modern sets.
That's fine. Anyway, so I'm like, so Hermit Feb, you know, 2 copies in the top 4, one copy in the finals, 1 in the top 4. The Fall Brawl, emerging.
What's wrong with like Hermit Not? That deck seems great to me.
I think it's just too hard to play for like. It takes a very specific kind of player to play these decks. So like, I really like to play Black Red Reanimator and Legacy, right? And so like Black Red Reanimator has these like 2 kinds of games. One game is the like turn 1 unmask Ritual Entomb Exhume, right?
Gear 1.
Yeah. And then so that happens and you're like, that's fine. So those games, you're only winning for like 90 seconds. And then
But the game only goes 93 seconds.
Yeah. So but then you have to play these other games where they're just like where you're like, oh, Multi 5, gotta grind this one out. And
I've never seen Flint Espel grind a game out in my life. He just mulligans to 4 and kills you on the second turn.
Okay, well maybe that's what you have to do. But the problem with these combo decks is when you're losing, you have to work so hard to lose as slowly as possible so that sometimes you can win.
That's my favorite kind of magic.
People just aren't cut out for that. Like, it's just miserable.
That's why I like the Rock. I love just getting beat on for 40 minutes.
Most people try to maximize for the opposite kind of game where they're winning for, like, that's why people love Landstill so much. They're just like, I'm just winning for 50 minutes. 50 minutes of winning. I was like, oh, I lost that game. That took like 5 minutes, but I was winning for 50 minutes.
Your
of the
idea
rest of the
about the
time.
psychology of a Landstill player is baffling to me. That's not the experience of playing Landstill.
No, it's the experience. You're just like, oh, I've got 70 cards in hand.
Landstill player
It's like,
is
I'm never
spitting
gonna
their
lose.
own teeth out for like most of the game, and then they turn the corner with a decree.
Yeah, they just always had it. There's like factor fiction. They're like, crack my land still. Like, I got 100 cards. Yeah, I've got 4 counter spells. You've got 1 card in your hand.
There's 4 counterspells in their deck.
No, it's 4 counterspell, 4 mana leak, 2 absorb,
They have, like, 2
17
mana
forbid. It's just like you always have them in your hand. It's crazy. It prohibits in there.
Oh my God.
Power sync.
What
Anyways.
amphetamines are you doing in the last 5 minutes that I missed?
Anyways, so people like winning for a long time. So the Flint deck is just like so rough because like when you lose, you just like lose super hard. I've played against that deck with so many things. It's just like that's the thing. It's like if you just like run into the hate and you just hate yourself the entire time. It's like, oh, I gotta fight this Tormod's Crypt. Oh, they have Meddling Mage and Tormod's Crypt. Oh, they've got, you know, whatever, Duress, Counterspell. They're just like, oh, this is miserable.
Well, so Flint's analysis is that the Flint deck, if you're going to interact with it from a graveyard perspective, it's he has these 2 kind of arcs of thought. He said there's slow graveyard decks and there's fast graveyard decks, right? Elves is a slow graveyard deck, right? You use Genesis and an Anger game doesn't feel very slow necessarily, right? But you're like using resources.
Turn 4 or 5.
Yeah, but you're using resources over the course of time, right? Genesis is a really good example, right? Genesis and Anger together with Elvish Lyrist, for example, is a really good example. Or I'm sorry, Druid Lyrist. It's a good example of like a slow graveyard grind, right? And he said, look, there are certain sideboard cards that are very good against slow graveyard decks, like Withered Wretch, for example, right?
Yeah.
Is good against a slow graveyard deck. So, Naughty Hermit is a fast graveyard deck.
Yeah, the crypt better be in your
You have a
hand.
crypt,
Yeah.
it's in play, or you're dead, right? Like a Phyrexian Furnace could very well be too slow, right?
Yeah.
Like so.
If you're tapped out,
Yeah,
exactly.
It's just too slow. So, and then he says, here's the other thing: your other route to victory
Doesn't use the
graveyard, right? So, versus like Hermit Feb, there aren't a lot of exposure points, right? But both of your combos are graveyard combos. So if your opponent had like, I don't know, Planar Void or something, you might have a...
Yeah, you'll have a bad time.
Yeah, you might have a hard... Well, can you put those things on the stack? Oh, so Planar Void goes
It would
on
only work if you had Shallow Grave in hand.
So
you can beat Planar Void with a Shallow Grave in hand.
So, but regardless, those are both graveyard combos, and one of them is really hard to interact with. The other one, I think you can interact with.
I agree with you. I think the deck is underplayed for how powerful it is. Maybe people just got bored.
Half the deck is just the Dreadnought combo.
I mean, people are just out there having fun, so maybe they just like stop having fun. I mean, I played against it with a couple. Like, I played against it with my man, what did I played against it in the monthly like twice or something. So there was like a player out there. So yeah, I mean, underplayed, still a good deck. Hermit Feb obviously is being played by a few pilots to great success. Deck is very difficult to pilot. It's basically like Amulet Titan in Old Modern, where it was just like, you know, F. Paluche and Canister and Dominic Harvey and Edgar Megayesh and you know, whatever, a couple other people were just like the Amulet guys, and they were the only ones who could play the deck. And they were just like, Amulet's tier 1. It's always tier 1. It's literally tier 1 at all times, every kind of modern metagame. You name the metagame.
Harvey made top 4 of the most recent
Pro Tour with Amulet Titan, yeah.
And that has a good matchup against Tron, right? That's one of the reasons.
I don't know if it has a good matchup against Tron. Why doesn't Tron... I mean, it has a good matchup against every deck in that it can cast Primeval Titan on turn 3 and win. I mean, the deck was... Whatever. All I'm saying is, we shouldn't talk about Amulet Titan. The point is, it's like...
our most popular episodes are the ones where we talk about Modern.
Yeah. Well, I'm just drawing the analogy, right? This is a complex combo deck, lots of lines, only a few pilots can play it. So
Chapin used to always tell me, if you're playing against Amulet Titan and it looks like you're going to lose, you should make them play it out.
Yeah, because they might
might screw it up, right?
I've done that multiple times where they're just like, they like don't play around me having one piece of removal, even though they can.
And he's just like, I don't care if they're a Pro Tour champion.
Yeah.
He's just like, I've seen Pro Tour champions screw up with Amulet Titan.
Yeah, because sometimes they'll do like 18 damage. And then, anyways. So, I mean, same thing with Hermit Feb. Like, sometimes you got to make the Hermit Feb play it out, and they might exile their own Coffin Purge that they needed to, execute their combo. And then you'll have their life in your hands on whether or not you give them a take back.
I feel triggered by this story that you've said.
Anyways, so Hermit Feb's become one of those decks. So it's just like one of those things where, granted, like nobody really plays it besides the Hermit Feb Cabal. So it's not like there's people who are like picking up and failing with it. I find the deck very clunky in that the survival side of the combo takes so much more mana than it looks like because.
Well, if you have a Palinchron, it takes less mana.
No, it just takes a lot of mana because you're using all your mana for setup. So people are like, oh, it's like a 5 mana, 3 mana, it's a 0 mana, like with Unearth, it's a 3 mana combo, right? If you don't have Unearth, it's a 5 mana combo. But actually, it's like a 10 mana combo because first, you're going to play Survival of the Fittest. Then, you're going to pitch a creature for 1 mana and go get Squee. And then you're going to pitch that Squee and then go get Devourer. And then the next turn, you're going to pick up the Squee, pitch the Squee again, and get Triskelion. And then on the next end step, you're going to pitch, hopefully you have another creature in hand, and this is to do the perfect combo. Obviously, you can just pitch the Devourer at that point and get Shapeshifter, but then you get busted off by any card that puts a card in your graveyard. So then you got to pitch one more non-Squee card in your hand because you already pitched Squee to pick up this thing to go get the Volrath Shapeshifter, or get Palinchron first, and then pitch that Palinchron to go get a Volrath Shapeshifter. And then on your active turn, you can tap 3 mana, play a Shapeshifter, untap all your lands, and then Triskelion Devour them. So there's like 3 turn cycles. You've spent like 3 or 4 mana over all these turn cycles. You need Wall of Roots and Birds of Paradise to survive most of the time to like get up to this because like having 3 natural lands is not guaranteed in like a 22 land deck. And your opponent has to be doing like nothing relevant during this time.
I played against Mike Harris in a meetup once with Mono Red, and I defeated him.
Yeah, because Burn is relatively good against.
Because all their lands deal damage.
Yeah, all their lands deal damage to them.
He claims now that the presence of Chill in the sideboard has made the matchup favorable for Hermit.
I mean, it would have to, obviously they've spent more time trying that than we have trying the opposite. But, that's exactly the point, right? So Chill just slows the Burn opponent down so you can put everything together because they used to try to do the Shallow Grave trick, but they gave up on the Shallow Grave trick, and now they're like all in on. I think they're all in on boarding out Hermits and going for a survival kill, and just using Chill as your way to protect their survival kill. But like I said, survival kill costs a lot of mana. If you're tapping those G for life points, it's also not good.
What if you only ever drew Reflecting Pools?
Then your Reflecting Pools could not tap for any mana because you don't have another land.
Damn it.
Anyways, this deck, so that's like, a lot of people are like, oh man, how do you beat this Hermit Feb deck? It's like, well, they have to cast Survival and then activate it like 7 times and cast Volrath Shapeshifter, or they have like Unearth in their hand, which is adding a card to their combo.
But this is like this is belying how quickly they actually execute this because it's like turn 4 sometimes.
It can be turn 4, but it started on turn 2, so it's like turn 2 they play Survival. Maybe they had a bird, so they turn Survival, they get the wheels turning. Then turn 3 they spend all their mana into the Survival. And then turn 4, they spend all their mana into the Shapeshifter.
Who do you think is at the advantage? I think Oath Peluche or Hermit Feb. Hermit Feb must crush Oath Peluche.
We saw it happen, but that was only because Adam didn't have testing time against Hermit Feb, so he didn't know when to time his hate.
No, he also doesn't have Sphere of Resistance in this deck.
That too. I mean, Sphere of Resistance would certainly help, but at the end of the day, he just like had a window for Tormod's Crypt that he didn't take advantage of. That would have at least.
But Harris knew that was a possibility.
He still played into it.
No, but I think he was trying to bait the utilization, right?
He was, but then he exposed himself. So Harris was fatigued out of his mind, and what he did was he pitched Devour to grab Triskelion. So with Devour in your graveyard and the Survival on the stack, he didn't have Triskelion in hand. If you crypt then you can never get the Triskelion because the Devourer is going to get exiled before Triskelion can.
So you have to find another way to do it.
Which you don't. you don't have at least the 1-turn kill without.
No, you got to attack for 6 in the air 3 times.
Yeah, you got to do the Chroma's plan. So, and that just gets plowed. So, I think that Oath Peluche can at least bring some hate. I mean, Oath Peluche can draw 4 with Sylvan. So
I think that.
And then the mana denial is pretty real. Like, if you just like Wasteland, port them, plow with our mana dorks, they just can't do anything. And you're good at containing survival because you're like a 5 or you're a Ray of Revelation deck. Or at least you should be a Ray of Revelation
Main deck?
You better. I mean, Fran runs 1 seal, 1 Ray of Revelation. I'm like, okay, I get it. You got the seal because you have 1 tutor, right? But just make the other one a Ray of Revelation because you have another tutor in the form of Oath of Druids, which puts Ray of Revelation in your graveyard every time. And you always tag your survival. I played a test match where I was up to 3 Ray of Revelation post
Main
sideboard.
deck? Oh,
No.
post sideboard.
Yeah, post sideboard. I really just triggered Oath against Survival Madness, and I got every survival for the rest of the game because I triggered Oath 1 time.
Speaking of Survival Madness, I watched a match this week where Fran lost to Survival Madness with Elves, which I didn't think was really possible.
Well, that's because Stan Cyberpunker has invested his entire Survival Madness sideboard into defeating Elves by running, 4 Pyrokinesis, 2 Cave-In, or whatever.
So Cave-In is another red pitch card?
Pitch, Pyroclasm,
Are these
Earthquake situation.
discard or exile?
Pitch. They're exile.
So you're losing your squeeze.
But he's got 4, so it doesn't matter.
So, but I mean, Fran also managed to lose game 1.
Yeah, that was rough too. I mean, losing game 1 definitely sucks. I mean, never underestimate the power of like a 2/2 and some well-placed counterspells against survival elves. Like if you just have a 2/2.
What is Cave-In as Pyroclasm?
Yeah, I think it's Pyro. I think it deals damage to players
For 5 mana.
for 0 mana.
So he needs to have his survival in play for his Pyroclasms to work.
Or he can just draw one of the squeeze. I mean, he's got a lot of card draw. He's got Frantic Search, whatever. So,
Does he have Careful Study?
I don't think he has Careful Study, but he sometimes has Gush. I think he cut Gush though, but who knows? His Survival Madness deck is crazy, but he's the only one who knows how to play it like he does. So
I mean,
he's literally only played the deck for years. It's just his Premodern deck, right? He just has a Premodern deck.
so I'm just gonna call up his deck and let's look at this.
I don't know how much time we should spend.
I want to look at it.
Stanley Madness. It's I mean, I think it's a good deck. I think it's like a good deck to like, be good at and have fun with. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of
So
like
he came in
for it.
first place in a Magic Online Society
League or playoff?
League.
So league just means he got a 5-0.
Okay. What is monthly?
Yeah, monthly is a 5-0. So it's just like a 5-0 result. And it's not Swiss, right? So you could like 5-0 and your OMW can be like, 10% or whatever. Or it can't be 10%. Well, it could be 10%. But I mean, I'm not saying that's the case. Like he could have had a 60% OMW, but it just like, there's no way to control it, right? Like that's what like players, that's like the first tiebreaker. So if he's at literal first place, then he also first tiebreakers out the other 5-0s. Yeah.
This deck is wild. Okay, how many Waterfront Bounces are in this deck?
I don't know, one.
How many Wonders?
1.
How many Arrogant Worms?
3 or 4.
It's 3. I would have guessed 4.
Well, it's 3 because you can just always buy them with survival. So
yeah, but look, I mean that's just one of the. So there's no Aquamoebas in this deck.
No, because it's a. Yeah, I mean, most survival Madness decks don't run Aquamoeba.
Really?
Yeah, most of them just don't run. Aquamoeba is just a horrible card.
It's not a horrible card.
It's a horrible card. So have you ever heard of this card, Merfolk Looter? You get to draw a card and play a card. It's like unreal.
Well, Aquamoeba was played more than Merfolk Looter because Merfolk Looter has this non-haste.
Yeah, but Merfolk Looter is still insane and like one of the most underplayed Madness cards, period. But the problem is Merfolk Looter does the same thing that Survival does, which is like just generate card advantage. So it's like there's no reason to run both.
No, but like one of them might get countered.
Well, I mean, you play your own counter, so you just like Survival with days back
2
up.
foil, 3 days, 4 counter, 4 Frantic Search, 4 Careful Study. So he
does
means it. He really means it with the squeeze.
Yeah, 4 squeeze to hang with Careful Studies and Frantic Search. So
4 survival. I mean, I hate that's what I hate about this strategy. The mana base is such a mess.
But that You just like it's okay to lose to your mana like 5 to 10% of the time more if like you get to play the cards you want, right? Like I think people underrate bad mana for like good decks. So like one of the things that people make mistakes with is that they're like, I'm gonna make this black-white mana base, and the payoff is that I get to play Vindicate and
I get
Ritual
Stone Rain.
Hippie and Exalted Angel. It's just like, okay, well, you're not making your mana base bad for any reasonable, like for any good reason, right? But if you're making your mana base bad and you're sacrificing it, it's like, okay, well, sometimes, sure, I'm gonna lose to my mana, but the other time I'm gonna like Wasteland Daze my opponent out of the game, you know, or like whatever. And like that's like a reasonable payoff. Like
so you had this whole theory about how I should play Scam in Modern because of all these natural advantages. Now you're making an argument I should just play some nonsense thing where I should just losing to my mana base.
Well, that's different.
I should win.
That's different because of the nature of Modern. Because Modern has perfect mana. It's just not a good. So I understand the argument you're trying to make, but just like let me extrapolate further. So like I still hold that the most powerful version of Goblins is a version that runs 3 copies of Ancient Tomb, right?
That's a Hoip's monthly build.
Goblin, yeah. And the reason I hold that belief is like, everyone's like, oh, you're not going to cast your Naturalize on time. Just like, it doesn't matter. You have Ancient Tomb. Like, sometimes you don't have to Naturalize anything because you used Ancient Tomb to play, you know, turn 2 Matron, turn 3 Ringleader, grind your opponent out, or, you know, turn 1, you know, Lackey, and then Ancient Tomb to enable, like, Ancient Tomb to Matron so that you have 8 copies of Siege Gang to come out in turn 2. It's like, Ancient Tomb is so good in Goblins. Like, I get it. You want 12 Sorcerer. I get it. Like, I love good mana. I love just being like, oh, I drew my green card. I cast my green card. Just like, just risk not casting Naturalize on turn 2 sometimes so that every other time you have +1 mana to, like, you know, stunt on your opponent with Ancient Tomb draws. So like that's like the point I'm trying to make. I'm like, don't play City of Brass so that you can play Lightning Bolts and Dreadnought, right? It's like we have a good Dreadnought deck with good mana.
Hey,
like,
hey, buddy.
Don't play basic Mountain in your Gush deck. But it's just like, okay, if you're playing this like Survival Madness deck, it's like sure, like just play 4 City of Brass.
I've won at least one meetup this way.
Yeah, I mean whatever. Anyways. Like, you know, the Survival Man, you're just like kind of like, okay, let's roll the dice. Like, we're just going to Gush foil sometimes, and that's going to be good enough for all the times where we're just like, oh, didn't draw any green mana for my Survival of the Fittest. It's like, you can mulligan, too. The deck is so naturally card advantageous and sees so many cards thanks to Careful Study Frantic Search and the Squee engine. It's just like, it smooths out. You just like, you know, mulligan until you keep a hand that has like Careful Study Island, and then the rest will sort itself out. It's like, if you wasteland your opponent, sure, it's not a green source, but sometimes wastelanding your opponent gives you like 3 extra draw steps so that you draw a green source. Like, just am I making myself clear? It's like, don't have bad mana for no reason. But it's like, if you're gonna have bad mana,
I hate having bad mana at all.
I know you hate the feeling. It's like obviously losing your mana sucks, but like But hear me out. Sometimes you just win.
In the early 2000s, late 90s, I was teammates with Brian Kibler, right? And Brian Kibler was famous for having the most atrocious freaking mana. If you look at his red zone deck that he made top 4 Pro Tour Chicago with, right? His deck had Sabo's Decree in the sideboard because Lan put it there. It's Sabo's Decree, Armageddon, Birds of Paradise,
Birds of Paradise fixes all your problems. What are you talking about?
Fire? No, he didn't have Fires. He had Ancient Hydra. You know what that is?
No.
It's R4 for a 5/1. But like, it's like R4 for maybe a 0/1, but it comes into play with 5+1/+0 counters, and you could take a counter off to ping something for 1.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like a gas strike.
I mean, I need to look this up. Yeah, Ancient Hydra. But I'm just saying, like, he was super famous for that, and I would try to play his decks, and I could never. I was just always dead to my mana.
Didn't Kibler play their teamer, the Rug Madness deck that had a curve of like Root Walla into Aquamoeba into Violent Eruption.
His deck was Psychotog with
Okay,
Violent Eruption and Psychotog.
I think this is a Michael J article about like this madness deck that had,
Okay, that's a
City of
different
Brass.
deck.
Yeah.
It's a different deck. This is one of my anti-Kibler runs because I played his deck at regionals that year.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Gaia's Skyfolk deck.
Okay.
But the entire mana base was pain.
Okay. Well, yeah. So we'll have to look up the article so that we can link it up. But my point is, you were just like, I'm playing this deck, and then you just like lose to mono black or mono red because all your lands.
Okay, so it's Ancient Hydra's 4R for a 5/1, fading 5. And it's 1 remove a fade counter from Ancient Hydra. Ancient Hydra deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So it's actually fading counters.
This card is pre-modern playable.
Yeah, it's probably sick. I mean, like,
you're just like describing a pre-modern playable card. I mean, obviously 9 mana to like kill a bunch of elves is like not that enticing, but still.
It's just like a 5/1.
Yeah.
It probably has haste, let's be honest.
Anyways.
Fires of Yavimaya is legal in pre-modern, right?
Yeah, it's horrible because Anger Survival is legal in pre-modern. Ever heard of Anger Survival if it is?
Oh, I guess.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay, let's go ahead and find the actual topic here. I think we put a pin on bad mana, okay? Like, obviously...
What's wrong with... Okay, speaking of bad mana, is any deck that is just like a white long game control deck, black-white, white Tron, like any deck like that, just stone unplayable?
I mean...
Red-white...
So, yes, because of Armageddon.
And Cataclysm.
Yeah, yes, because of Armageddon, Cataclysm, Parallax Tide sometimes, etc.
So, like, those are the most interesting decks to me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know they are. And it's, like, this is, like, the thing... I think this is, like, the weird, like... This is, like, the weird paradox of pre-modern, where... You're immediately like, this. I'm excited. You're just like, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to play a bunch of lands. I'm gonna play a bunch of lands.
My lands are gonna let me cast my spells.
Yeah, I'm gonna cast spell. Like, I'm just gonna play Spiritmongers, and I'm gonna play Call the Herd, flashback Call the Herd. I'm gonna do all this stuff.
Why are you picking these spells? The spells I want to cast are like Gerard's Verdict.
Sure, Gerard's Verdict is fine because you can cast it with 2 mana. It's mostly like I'm gonna Death Grasp my opponent. I'm gonna Cycle Decree of Justice. Cycle Decree of Justice is like so. It's like so delicious. It's like so enticing. You're just like Cycle Decree.
If you're doing it, if you're doing it in a blue deck, it's awesome.
Draw a card. I'm gonna win the game with these 1/1s. Like, and I think this is like what people love pre-modern because you got the rock just like land drop, like. Just Dust
land
Bowl.
Drop.
Yeah, just
Dust
like,
Bowl.
Boom. And it's just like
Dust Bowl, land drop. It's a combo.
Yeah, it's like, guys, like you're Dreadnought, elves, goblins, and Hermit Feb or whatever are just like doing everything that you can do. They just do for free.
Wait, you think that all the best decks, just based on what you named, are just like low mana environment decks?
Yeah, 100%. Like,
so, like you just never play a second land with goblins. You might route
the boomers. Remember the infamous saying, I'm sure you have the credit of just like, if you're paying 4 mana for a card, it better win the game. You know who said that? Who said that?
It's V. Moshowitz.
So this is V, right? That was a true, that he made that statement in the pre-modern era.
He made it in 1998 or 1998.
Yeah, exactly. So. It's like, that was true. If that was true in 98, it's true in 2023 pre-modern. And people just can't wrap their heads around that. They're just like, there's like, every day in the Discord, just like, what if we played, what if we play this Doomsday combo deck that's based around Future Sight? It's just like,
that's why I made non-idiots, because people just keep saying idiotic things.
They're not, and it's not idiotic. It's like people are out there wanting to have fun.
It's just like, no, but like what's idiotic is you explain when you explain a prime directive thing to somebody, that's the thing that kills me. Like, this is a prime directive thing, or like people want to explore ideas that are worse in every way, to ideas that are already developed.
Well, that's because they don't have the prime directive. They have the shenanigans directive, which is opposite to the prime's directive, which is just that, like, well, what if you can do something that another deck does better, but you do it in a more interesting way?
So, like, I talked to Fran about this a bunch, and I'm like, I would totally play the Show and Tell form of the Dragon deck. He's just like, this is just a bad Dreadnought deck. Like, instead of like Dreadnought Stifle, you now have 3 casting cost Dreadnought, Right. And like an uncastable 19 mana freaking enchantment that if your opponent has an Incinerate and a Lightning Bolt, you might just be dead. Right. And combo can't beat a Sulfuric Vortex because you can't gain life back up to 5. Right. You just go to 5 and then you just die to the
luckily
Vortex.
These are all red cards, so you can just sideboard into a Dreadnought deck.
Yeah. So, but I'm like, but wait. I don't know if you knew this part. I get a Form of the Dragon.
Yeah, you get
right. But
Form
like,
of the Dragon.
I understand that there's a Prime Directive issue here, but a Form of the Dragon is just a functionally different card than a Dreadnought, right? Like,
this is shenanigans.
It's a moat.
This has shenanigans directive written all over it. The sanitize the shenanigans directive, and anyways, that is my point. Is that?
But it is just a bad Dreadnought deck. A really bad Dreadnought deck.
I mean, so is everything is a bad version. I mean, so many decks fail on this. You know, it's like, why did Mike Arnold, play Spicy Elves every single time he's played? He just wants to do something that's different and interesting, and it doesn't necessarily fail the Prime Directive, but it certainly is like a weaker deck.
You don't lose the Prime Directive. So, for the sake of argument, you don't lose the Prime Directive if you were better in some context.
No.
Like,
that's true.
Let's
That's
imagine
true.
you're always playing against red deck, right? And you're just like,
I understand.
Like, then that's not a Prime Directive loss.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like green red deck doesn't have Armageddon, so sometimes Armageddon is better. So that's like a fine argument. But the bigger argument is that we're all out here, we're trying to have fun, we're making content plays, right? We want to like post, like, just imagine for a moment that everybody's just playing the Phil Win game, and then
Phil's decks, now that he's not playing only Reverent Silence, life gain, life loss combo decks, his decks are like all really interesting. Like Raging Glaciers is a really
that was like
it's a really interesting deck.
That was the most effective one. And what happened to that deck? He added Oath of Druids to it because he was like, well, I can just play Oath of Druids and then I don't have to play,
Well, no, his first version, I was just like, why don't you just add Thawing Glaciers? And then he's like, okay. Then I was just like, well, why don't you just add one Forest? And he's like, why? Because then you could cast your Gaia's Blessing. Because you have like a Gaia's Blessing in the sideboard for like whatever, Brain Freeze decks, whatever. You can just have Gaia's Blessing.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite good in this deck.
Oath, and then once you have Oath.
Yeah, and then he's just like, well, what if I had this? And I'm like, yeah, this looks like a real deck.
Yeah, exactly. It just stopped being a pillage deck and became a freaking Oath.
But
Oath
I
deck.
would actually play that. That deck seems so much more interesting to me than Mono Red Ponza, which seems unplayable.
Okay, let's not. I mean, it's not important to talk about the decks we don't like.
I'm saying that's a real deck.
What's more important is that there's rules of engagement, and you have to obey. Like, you only have to obey them if you choose to accept them. Right?
Okay.
If you're out there and you're just like, I'm just going to let myself get owned by these decks that are really good because sometimes I'm going to do the thing. It's just like, I've got nothing to say that. What I do have to say,
Phil's Tron deck has 9 Tron pieces. That I can't wrap my head around.
Well, Weather Wayfarer.
I understand why. It can't possibly be right.
Anyway, so what I do have to say on this topic is just that, like, people give themselves a false sense of security because some of the games of Premodern they play, like, they are sometimes allowed to cast a spell that costs a lot of mana, or sometimes allowed to put together like their convoluted 3-card combo. Like, there's this deck, I use this as a great example. There's a deck, it's called Dredge at Home. It's a zombie infestation.
Dredge at Home?
Yeah, we have Dredge at Home. So it's Dredge at Home. It's a zombie infestation, squee, Krovikan horror deck.
Is it the Firestorm Wild Mongrel deck?
No, it doesn't have Firestorm Wild. That's different. That's Jund Madness.
I like that deck.
That's Jund Infestation Madness. This is a deck that, like, uses like Krovikan horror advantage and has it used to play Breakthrough. Rich Shea wanted to play Standstill. Anyways, it's just a cool deck.
It's a
super
Standstill zombie deck?
I think they cut the Standstills eventually, but they were just like, oh, we're going to have Zombie Infestation in play, and we're going to have Standstill, and it's going to be awesome. Anyways.
This is like one of those decks you has a first turn Buried Alive for squeeze, and then you can't lose if your opponent doesn't stop your zombie infestation.
I mean, I don't know if it has Buried Alive or not.
2/2/2s a turn, and
it does.
they're cold.
I mean, last time Fran played it had Buried Alive, but
oh wait, what if we made this into like a smokestack deck?
Oh, that's what I'm talking. It's a freaking Braids deck now. Anyways.
Oh, Braids is smokestack, right? Okay.
Well, you need 8 copies because how are you going to draw them? Okay.
So all right. So talk to me about this deck I've never heard of, but I'm now in love with. By the way,
this deck is like a perfect example. It's super cool, but it's just also just like, okay, well, what if your opponent has Oath of Druids? What are you going to do? You're a blue-black deck against Oath of Druids.
Can't I beat it with smokestack?
You can't beat Oath of Druids with smokestack because they can either like sack the thing that they get with Oath, or better yet, they can just sack a land and then kill you. And also braids can't sacrifice enchantments to braids.
No, smokestack can.
I know smokestack can't, but braids can't. Anyways, like so
like, can't I just put smokestack on the stack and then like make a zombie and sacrifice the zombie so it's never on their turn?
You can break smokestack symmetry, but if you never have a creature in play, then you can try to break smokestack. You can use smokestack, but then you just describe a 4-mana card which is vulnerable to double disenchant, like any number of disenchants, right? Breaks it up. Like what if I trigger my Oath once and then I mill Array of Revelation and then I Array of Revelation?
Oh no!
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways,
can I have like a Nether Shadow? Contamination?
No, because you can't. You're talking Nether Spirit, Nether Shadow, or Nether Spirit. Which one?
The one that if I have exactly one creature.
That's Nether Shadow.
That's what I said.
No, you said Nether Spirit. No,
I said Nether Shadow.
Oh well, no, sorry. You said Nether Shadow, and that's so bad because you're a squee Krovikan.
No, I just stack my squeeze and then resolve my Nether Shadow.
Your Nether Shadow doesn't trigger on your upkeep if you have squeeze.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's because
I've never thought about this until just now.
Anyways,
how about? But
this is an example of a deck that people love.
But can I contamination lock them then?
You can't. This isn't. You're just describing a different deck. There's a contamination. There's a Nether Shadow contamination deck, and there's a zombie infestation.
Why can't I mash them together? Why can't I?
Nobody's saying you can't.
S-bill this.
Well, my point is, this deck, people are in love with this deck. Everyone has this deck built. Like everyone, Rich built the deck.
Everyone has this deck, but I haven't even heard of this deck.
Fran built this deck. It was designed by Mike Packer. I played against him at LobsterCon with Parfait. I put Oath of Druids in play, and then he lost. It was like it's very trivial. It was like, okay, shuffle up, boom. I cast Oath of Druids, and he's like, all right, sweet. I lose. Like, he just lost. He's like, I'll make zombies. I'm like, cool, I got charged.
That's what happened at LobsterCon last year. Last round of the Swiss. Mano's playing against, I think he lost to Enchantress, the Enchantress deck who came in first in the Swiss. His buddy's playing the last round of the Swiss. He's playing whatever we would think of as Oath Peluche now, right? Mono green Oath Peluche, right?
Yeah. Sure.
He's got Thermocars. He's got Winter's Grasp. He has Argothian Worm as his kill creature.
Let's
right?
go.
You know who he plays in the last round of the Swiss?
Rich Shea.
Yeah.
This is on video too.
Yeah. Who do you not want to play in this situation?
Yeah. So anyway, so that's like what I mean, and it was like funny because like it was just like that deck beats up on. I mean, who knows if it actually does, but the deck conceivably has a better matchup against Sam Black Tax Rack because Zombie Infestation kind of gets there. But anyways, this deck is just like it folds to a decent number of things. It's good against a decent number of things, but it's just like
why have I never heard of this deck?
Because nobody local plays it. Well, nobody local plays it, and then it's not putting up results. So it's not like
I wanted to play the deck that I wanted to play that I never got to play. I was thinking about playing it at Sacred Torch, but I wanted to play it in the PSS when I was in the PSS. But then I got convinced to play Flint's deck, and then you know what happened with that. I wanted to play the Zombie Infestation Braids Achroma deck.
Yeah, we've talked about this deck on this podcast. We had to go back in the archives. Talked about it with Dave Tao. I mean, this is what I'm saying though, right? Like these are all ideas that are like good in theory.
No, that's a good deck.
It's not a good deck.
How do you know?
Well, because nobody plays it. Because anyone who has given up already because they're losing too much. Like every week. Okay, so this is why Dredge Head Home is like a perfect example. Every week, somebody drops in and just say, "Hey guys, what's the latest on Dredge at Home?"
Where are they dropping it? I have never seen this.
This is Discord.
I am in the Discord with you.
No, the you don't read it. The Premodern Discord. You have to like.
Oh, I don't.
You have to scroll through.
Go into those places.
I'm explaining to you what happens in them right now. Okay.
I don't have time for these places. I've not any time of you.
There's like a bunch of deck tech channels, and then you just like pop in.
There's
every single week
a bunch of deck tech channels.
I can't. I don't have time to explain this to you.
I don't. The listeners also want to know.
The listeners are in the Discord. They talk to me all the time. We need to make a Spike Colony Discord so that they can fill you in on. Anyways.
Oh my god. I look at deck picks. That's what I do.
Exactly. So nobody deck picks this deck because nobody tops anything with the deck because it's not good. But it's one of the coolest. It's like literally one of the coolest decks ever.
It sounds really cool to
me. Every week somebody's just like, "Yo, Mike Packer, what's the latest on Dredge at Home?" He's like, "I haven't picked up the deck in a while because I can't win anything with it." I think he's local. I might get this wrong, but I think he's local to the Massachusetts scene where they play like relatively regularly. So they'll show up. They do their little like 8 to 12 person stuff. They like post the results. Either he's playing there or one of the other guys are playing there often. They have the deck, and so they'll be like, "Oh, I like went 2-1 or 3-1 in my local with Dredge at home." But they don't they don't post on CC decks. They just like sometimes they post a deck pick. Most of the time they don't. But the thing is, every single week somebody pops in and just like, "What's the latest on Dredge at home? Who's working on Dredge at home? Like, what have you tried this in Dredge at home?" Everybody's talking about Dredge at home. It's just a bad deck that people love. And it's just like,
it sounds great.
It's just like not, it's not like unplayable, but it's just like not very playable. It's like usually show up to the tournament and you're just like, okay, cool. Like I got a couple wins, but then I also just like lost to decks that like do things that are inherently powerful.
Yeah, but
and
like
what's so funny,
could like a red deck can't beat this deck. Can't beat a zombie infestation.
I mean, I don't know. I might just be able to ignore it and just like send it all at face. Like I think maybe it has a good burn matchup. So maybe that's the idea.
Is there some kind of Fireman Angel in this format where you just discard Fireman Angels and gain 2 life a turn?
No, there's no Fireman Angel. We would have been playing something like that in some mopey control deck.
So what what card I don't know why people don't play is Peace of Mind. Like Peace of Mind seems like it's just unbeatable to me. Peace of Mind costs white and 1, right? And it's an enchantment, and the text is discard a card, gain 3 life.
No.
So, like, can you imagine that with, like, Squee? Like, you could just have it and just discard cards to gain life. You could have it with, like, Squee, right? And then just gain tons of life.
Yeah, I mean,
if you had it with, like,
break Squee,
Land Tax Parfait, like, you could have done it with Land Tax Parfait.
Yeah, you get a tutor for it. I don't know.
So, if you think about this card...
You played an Oathblush.
The thing that's really powerful about it is, it's not dissimilar from Sam's approach to that, like, blue-green Enchantress where he originally was like, oh, you might lose to a top deck Lightning Bolt, so I have to add like the white words. It's not dissimilar from that, but like if you get like, this is a lot of activations, right? So it's going to require a lot of white mana, but like is that you just discard 11 cards or so, which is, I guess that's an exorbitant amount to think about. There's like 11 cards.
Figure out where we're going here.
It puts you out of Feb range.
Yeah, I mean, gaining life can be good against Fab. It's like not always reliable. Like the problem is you're expending cards to gain life, and you need those cards to interact with Fab, or else they'll kill you first. But
no, I'm just like thinking, like, it just wouldn't have enough mana to get there.
I mean, the problem with Zombie Infestation is that it's inherently not powerful against Oath of Druids. Like that's one huge problem. Like the only way that creature decks tend to overcome Oath of Druids in the current meta is via Survival of the Fittest or Goblin Lackey. Because like I can't draw
just
or Pernicious Deed. Naturalize isn't necessarily effective because you need like your timing window is like if you play a creature and they play an Oath, they might just get a 15/15 and then
it was 19/19 when it happened to me.
Yeah, exactly what happened to you.
I broke a fucking wood foothills.
Like it's the same as the Tormod's Crypt problem, right? It's just like, okay, you need Crypt against Angry Hermit in your opening hand. That's why you just need to sideboard a bunch of Crypts, because you need to be able to mulligan to Crypt if like that's your plan of resistance.
Yeah, because they're a fast graveyard.
Exactly.
Against a slow graveyard deck, you have other options.
Yeah.
Right?
So like Elves, like any of these decks that don't interact well with graveyard combo decks, like need a multi Crypt, right? So
do you bring in Crypt against Oathblush? I did last night. I don't know if it was right.
I would not bring it in against Oathblush, except for I would bring it in if I'm playing a Guy's Blessing Oath deck and my opponent is playing a Terravore deck, because then I can actually clean both graveyards. But I wouldn't do it just to like gain 5 life.
No. So he sided into a Guy's Blessing deck, but I would have done it anyway.
Yeah, I would always have Crypt as Elves against a Shard Phoenix deck. But that's why the Shard Phoenix deck runs Shard Phoenix to Chroma post-board against Elves, is to beat Crypt. But anyways, the naturalized problem is the same thing as a Crypt problem. Like Hermit Druid and Oath of Druids do the same thing. They like enter the battlefield and then you lose the game. So like you're naturalized in Tormod's Crypt timing.
Why are you so cynical about the format? I don't think any of this is true. I played a lot of interesting decks and interesting games last night.
It's like really interesting to play games that don't involve Oath of Druids. And it's like a really nice thing that only some people play Oath of Druids decks.
I mean, what's amazing to me is like Enchantress can play Oath of Druids.
Yeah.
That's baller.
Just poop out some Argothians, yeah.
No, but not just that, but like if you have the replenish in your hand.
I mean, that's obviously sick. So
and it's an enchantment.
I'm not trying to be like overly cynical. I just like think about it and I'm just like, okay, well, like the amount of leverage that you get out of one card is just like, I mean, like, I guess I should have been louder about this during like the Parfait era because I was just kind of like, whatever. I don't think anything needs to change. But now what feels like it ended up happening is just like now that there's not this like predominant Oath of Druids deck that people hate playing or feel bad about playing or don't want to get the cards for. Now there's just a bunch of these like fair Oath of Druids decks that are just like kind of annoying.
But we've had this amazing blossoming of deck design. They're all different.
I don't know what's happening. I have no idea how people are casting Savannah Lions right now. Honestly, I obviously have a bad read because maybe they're just like, one of the Savannah Lions guys went on Will Hurst's podcast and he's like, actually, I'm pretty good against Oath of Druids. I either have Meddling Mage or I just like don't play creatures until I find Disenchant. So I'm like compelled by the idea that the counterplay is like don't play creatures until you find Disenchant, which was like, I get it, right? It's just like if it was like don't play creatures and don't play lands, then until you find 2 Disenchants, that's just like much more annoying.
You're gonna discard a lot.
But like at least you can play lands and then you just like find your Disenchant or whatever. And of course, like Oath has like a turn lag, which you can exploit. But I don't know. It's just kind of like every time you don't draw a Meddling Mage or Disenchant, but you want to play your Savannah Lions, like are you boarding out Savannah Lions?
I mean, Jens only has 2 Disenchants in his main deck.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, are you seriously going to wait for these Disenchants?
And he has none in his sideboard. He has 1 Aura of Silence total.
They're just going to develop, and then they're going to be a much more powerful deck if you just give them a bunch of draws. Like, that's the whole point of Oath of Druids, is that it just draws. It makes you survive your next 100 draw steps. So
how does this? So you play a first turn Mother of Runes or Savannah Lion, second turn Standstill, and hope it sticks.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the whole game.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you obviously can time your standstills. Like, or like you got to choose when to cast Standstill, obviously. But like,
then
it's like not a bad like Savannah Lion Standstill is a totally fine setup.
Says
that
you.
Savannah Lions does 6 damage. I played against it. I was like, my opponent played first turn Savannah Lions, and I was just like playing Replenish. I'm like, this Savannah Lions is going to do 8 damage to me for 1 mana. Like, it's just, like super good.
That's like when the first time I was playing Red Deck against Pog, I played a Mog Fanatic, and he like scoffed at me.
Yeah, and
I'm like, this is going to do 6, right? And it did 7.
So one of the most important things that kind of people sort of don't fully address is that like one way to deal with the oppressiveness of the card Swords to Plowshares is to play creatures that cost 1 mana. So like Savannah Lions in exchange for Swords to Plowshares is pretty fine for the Savannah Lions player. Like,
well, that's got to be pretty good. Like, because if you have a finite number of Swords to Plowshares and they didn't kill your Exalted Angel.
Exactly. This is White Weenie. Like, this is just White Weenie, right? It's just like all my creatures are cheap and bad. So like your Plowshares isn't going to do it to me. The thing that is going to do it to you is Oath of Druids. You know.
I mean, I can Meddling Mage the Oath of Druids if I'm on the play.
I mean, that's the whole game.
I mean, they can just plow my stupid Meddling Mage and then
yes, they can. I mean, that's why I think there's like, I think that green-white Oath decks are underplayed. I think that mono green Oath is fine, but it's not as robust as green-white Oath. So I would like to see more balance there. The mono green Oath deck is like a lot more fun, so that's why people are playing it. And obviously it has more devotees. Like, the problem with the green-white
You think it has
deck,
more devotees than green-white?
Yeah. I mean, the mono green Oath deck is just more fun. The green-white Oath deck is so boring. You're just like past the turn. I'm just like, just import you. I hate activating Rishon Import on Magic Online because it takes 1,000 clicks.
Which one is TV Tyrant? Is he the one who won the Misty?
No, Thursday is the one who won the Misty. TV Tyrant is the one who invented the mono green Oath deck. Anyways,
Thursday is God is the one.
Yeah, Ricky Thorson.
But he's actually listed as Thursday is God, having won the Premodern Fall Cup at Misty.
That's because the admin at TC Decks uses aliases if they know that that person has that alias. So like my paper results are sometimes categorized under Lanny. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap everything up. I think.
What is even the topic? What are we going to wrap up?
I'm wrapping up the Oath topic, and then we'll wrap up Premodern today.
All Premodern is now wrapped.
Premodern. I think my problem is I don't know. I'm just like kind of like looking at like the problem that I have is just that like the decks that I want, like when I think about brewing, think about attacking from like some separate angle. Sam Black posted recently this like Battle Screech deck. It's a Jeskai deck that has Battle Screech and Goblin Bombardment. It plays Goblin Legionnaire and Meddling Mage. And I was like, I think it has a couple of other runes. I took it for a spin.
Sounds terrible.
It didn't really sing for me. It was like Battle Screech definitely feels like it's a card that can be good, but like even Flippy, it used to be called Flippy Birds because it was a Quiet Speculation Battle Screech deck. Like Flippy moved to this Rebel Still deck, and then he cut the Rebels from it, so then it just became Weenie Still. Like I'm so unattracted to decks that play like creatures that aren't Goblin Lackey and Priest of Titania because like, you know, in the face of Oath of Druids, it's like kind of crazy. I think it's like weirdly too good to oath out Terravores. Like at least you just like didn't win like at least if all you were doing was oathing out Shard Phoenix, like your opponent could just like lose their board and then wait to draw a disenchant. But the fact that they threaten to like put out a game-ending creature for you unless you're also Swords to Plowshares plus like, you know, it is like it just does too many good proactive things that I'm comfortable with. So it makes it just like really obnoxious to like think about playing any other deck than Replenish or like a good deck, you know. Like that's basically where I'm at. Like I play Replenish so much these days because I just like hate the prospect of playing.
You don't want to get my intuitions back.
I also don't want to do that. I just don't want to trigger Oath of Druids. I hate triggering my opponent's Oath of Druids. Just like I'd rather trigger 1,000 land taxes than Oath of Druids.
Do you know what an unlimited Savannah Lions costs? Unlimited.
50.
180.
That's pretty sweet.
That's insane.
That's awesome.
You know what a revised one costs?
50.
$4.20.
Okay,
this makes no sense.
Never mind. You're right. Was it an uncommon too, like a rare, or was it?
It was a rare, but 4th edition's $1.40. Revised is $4.20. Unlimited, also a white border card. It's like $200. Yeah. How is this?
That's how unlimited price works. Old school playable. Well, all 4 of them are old school playable, so I don't know. But
because I was gonna price like foreign BBs. Foreign BBs must be much worse.
They would be hard, yeah. I mean, they're probably like the same as like I guess the bolts were like 25, so it's like
those are common.
So it could be 100. City of Brass is like insane. That's Arabian Nights.
I bet I have some foreign BBs, but
you could just get Dominaria remastered, different art.
Dominaria remastered Savannah Lion?
Yep. There's DMR Savannah Lions.
I need to get Dominaria.
They're like 10 cents.
I'm so mad. I don't know where my freaking
Dominaria remastered box is.
No, my Sylvan Libraries. I probably threw out Sylvan Libraries and Mox Diamonds at the same time. Oh no, I know where everything. I bet they're at BDM's house. I bet I made a deck and I left it in BDM's bag in
the 90s,
in like 2006.
Okay.
I can imagine. Yeah, we had this thing called the Mock Invitational that Christian Kyle won.
Right.
And
we've talked about this on the podcast. So
I bet you that's where they are.
Okay. I don't know. Premodern's still great. Like I want to still explore some angles and whatnot, but I also just like want to work on the tier decks, like just kind of like get a feel for some stuff that's going on, like feel for
what decks do you want me to play?
I don't know. I think I just want to do like dumb stuff, like play Goblins versus Rock, or play like I want to like see what you're saying. Like I want to play Oath Ploosh against everything. I want to play Oath Ploosh without Mox Diamond, that kind of stuff. Just kind of vibe it out. But I think the reason why I've been on this like weird, like, I don't know, Oath of Druids is kind of crazy is because I just like don't like, I'm just kind of like either gonna play Replenish or an Oath of Druids deck for the foreseeable future.
Why are you so? I never got this. Like, why are you so in love with Replenish? Just because you don't want to trigger Oath of Druids?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
That's the reason. Yeah.
You could trigger Oath of Druids with an elf. You win.
Yeah, I mean, elves is kind of sweet, but like I have to borrow the deck from you if I ever want to play it. So it just like deepens my reliance on you for everything. And then
let me tell you, I played it last night. I love playing Premodern. I've never had so much fun.
Elves is kind of
so
sweet in
fun.
that respect. It is almost a little too good, where it's just kind of like, okay, so there's two. Elves is actually the same thing.
If you want, I can play the goblin side, and you will never again make that statement.
So it's the fun thing about elves is the same thing as the fun thing about Angry Hermit. It's just like you win quickly and you lose slowly, right? Like elves like floods out. Sometimes you're just like, oh, I hate my life, just like flooded out, or it's like Bullet to Oblivion, like couldn't find a hand that had 2 lands in it, or like 1 land in it. So that happens with elves a lot. So I like, definitely don't love that aspect of it, but I don't know. I just like the replenish deck is like my own, right? So like I still like am trying to do stuff with it. You know, I went back up to 4 mocks and like trimmed the tides, tried 4 Cedia traders, like trying different stuff with it.
So listen to this. At the end of 3 rounds last night, there's only 1 undefeated player. It was me. But then I'm like, okay, let's go home. Because it was like, you know,
late, yeah.
We'd also been drinking.
Yeah.
Right? So even I was drinking, right?
Yeah, you're drinking Fernet.
Yeah, so I was drinking Fernet. And so like I'm tired. But everyone else is just like, oh, we could take Mike out.
Yeah.
Like somebody else might win. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
you have to defend the throne.
Play a 4th round. And then they were like, oh, if you don't want to play, you know, we could just say that you're the champ. Like, none of this.
No technical crowns.
So I literally left the brewery because I'm like, do you have coffee? No. Do you have like a Diet Coke? No. I can have a regular Coke. I'm not going to drink a regular Coke. All right, so I literally left, walked until I found a bodega, got a latte, came back to play. And so last round, do you know Avery? He's a friend with Lan.
I don't know if I met Avery at one of the meetups.
He's friends with Lan. He played it. He was the one who's playing the high tide deck at Sacred Torch.
Yeah.
So he's playing the Rock, right? And I'm like, oh shoot, I won this match from the other side at
yeah.
And he just didn't draw point removal in either game. So
yeah, there you go.
Like it was he's just like, wow, this is unwinnable. I'm like, if you just had a vendetta for my Kamal, you would have won. But you didn't.
You have a vendetta for the priest. You probably do things before Kamal enters the battlefield.
Oh, I mean, like I think the one game, my draw wasn't that good. My draw was keepable, but not
like
that
all
good.
dorks and Kamal. Nice.
No, my first draw I had like first turn Ranger, like second turn like Symbiote, Cradle Priest. I didn't have anything, so I just like flipped Multani's Acolytes and but like if you have a Symbiote and a Symbiote, a Ranger, and a Priest and an Acolyte, that's like 4 cards and 3 untaps.
Yeah.
So it did not take me long to find the Kamal.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you that way.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I like playing decks that like you know, scratch the itch or whatever, just like make me feel smart. Or I mean, obviously Elves makes you feel smart because you're like, oh, I found the line, but then you like do it 5 times and you're like, oh, I found the line again. So it's like
Elves is not boring.
I mean, I like it. I just like don't like. It's also one of those decks that get like weirdly hated out by random BS, and it's kind of like I hate when that happens. Although like Replenish losing to Flippy Birds twice was just like the random BS situation. I was just like,
I mean, when I beat Cam at Bearded, right? Like, I was just like, hope I draw
Cataclysm.
No, I hope I draw Null Rod, right? So I just got Oath of Druid's Null Rod, Enlightened Tutor backup. It felt unlosable.
Yeah. Either way, I don't know. I mean, I haven't got to put more reps into the blue-green Enchantress deck.
That's one that I want to try. But is that fun?
It's super fun. I mean, Flint phoned in. He was so mad. He was so angry. I can't understate how angry Flint was.
Flint was angry over...
He was so angry. He posted his blue-green Enchantress deck and was like...
Where did he post
You guys... He posted it and tagged us on the Facebook group because he topped the monthly. And he's just like... So
when?
Rumor has it people were playing blue-green Enchantress before Sam Black. I'm like, okay, Flint.
Wait. When did this happen?
It was like last week.
He tagged me?
We were openly attacked. He posts his like blue-green Enchantress
Where? I did not
pick.
see this. Where
did he? Huge character attack. Flint, who could have just written a nice letter to the editor.
Where did he post it?
Facebook, the main Facebook.
I don't go there. I only go to non-idiots.
It doesn't matter. It's just in your
main
notification.
Facebook group is full of idiots.
Anyways, he posts. This is why he's so mad because he hates. the prince. He's like, don't insult my kingdom. Anyways,
Was he top aided?
No, he just top cut. So for just you, Mike, must I remind you that in the monthly you play in a pod of 6 people. So you just round robin 6 people. So you round robin 6 people. He goes X1. He gets in the top. After you get
top 16s are the cuts, right?
Top 16 plus, because you can have more than 16 people that X1 their pod. So after you top cut, you post your deck list. So it just so happened that the month we mentioned Sam working on his blue-green Enchantress deck, Flint played blue-green Enchantress. And then he was just like, blue-green Enchantress has been around before Sam. I don't recall ever saying that Sam invented blue-green Enchantress. I just said it was a cool deck. If you're me and you don't know every single deck that Flint or Jens Jaeger and other Europeans have played, because there's like a blog post on the main Premodern blog like 1,000 years ago about blue-green Enchantress. If you don't read all of that, Sam Black.
I've been to that website once.
Sam Black was just like, everybody plays green-white Enchantress, but like white cards don't seem good and blue cards do seem good. And then, anyways, everyone took this as a personal attack on 2021 Premodern, I guess, and was just like, Sam Black didn't invent the deck. I didn't say that he invented the deck. Anyways, Flint.
Are you sure?
Flint roasts us. Yeah, I know, right? Sam Black could have invented it 15 years ago. Anyways, Flint roasts us, and he's like, this deck's been around since before Sam Black. I'm like, I'm sure it has, Flint. But like, Sam's top 8 at 3 Pro Tours, so I just care about what he has to say. I'm just like,
I did not see this at all. I was tagged in it.
Mike, get over it. You missed it. If you wanna get in the weeds on like yelling about things, then you have to be more terminally online. It's like a good thing that you missed this stuff.
You told me to stop fighting with people.
I know. I didn't fight. I'm fighting where
you're fighting me.
No, I'm fighting in an arena which I have complete control, which is my podcast. So I just gotta be like, oh, Flint's crazy. Flint's a crazy guy, man. He's just yelling stuff at me. I don't even care, man. I'm just like so aloof. I'm so cool. Anyways, obviously, love you, Flint. I don't like Living Wish in that deck. I think Worldly Tutor is better than Living Wish. So, whatever. But still,
what about Portent?
It's not an enchantment.
I feel like I would Portent.
No, what if the Enchantress is in the top 3? The deck. So one thing that both Flint and Sam understood about this iteration of the deck. So Flint doesn't have Elephant Grass. He has Frantic Search over Elephant Grass. And he has Trade Routes, which Sam quickly cut from the deck. But one thing that they both understood was just like, probably have to have Argothian Enchantress. So Flint runs 4 Living Wish, 3 Argothian. Sam runs 4 Worldly Tutor, 4 Argothian. Sam's
Worldly Tutor seems better. It's fast.
That's what I'm saying. So Sam's a little bit more interested in speed because he runs Lotus Petal as well, and conceivably 1 Squandered Resource to speed up the kill by a turn sometimes. Flint runs...
Is that kind of hard to cast? You need to have...
No, you've got 4 Fertile Ground. Yeah, you have 4 Fertile Ground, 4 Lotus Petal, 4 City of Brass. So it's 12 sources. But Flint also runs some Serra Sanctums. He runs like more Land Soul. Anyways, there's minor differences between the deck. I'm happy for Flint. I think that Worldly Tutor is faster. I think that like turn 2 or turn 1 Argothian is like a huge deal. And then it's also interesting that Flint ran the... we'll have to ask him ourselves. I'm offended that he posted publicly roasting us in the big Facebook when he has access to the little Discord and he can fight with us in our little Discord. It's a big Facebook.
Well, I think he probably wants to get me back for all the times I've punched down.
How can you punch down? He's the champion. How many championships have you won?
No, but I punched down to randos.
Oh, well, yeah, you deserve to get punched for punching down on randos. That's why I was saying he was a prince protecting his kingdom. Because then he posted and everyone was like rallying. He's like, yeah, suck it, Spike Colony. You guys don't know shit. I'm just like, of course I don't. Like, I'm just like, it's blue-green Enchantress.
When did this happen? I have never seen this post.
I know you haven't seen it, Mike. Like,
I obviously would have fought.
All this time, you could have just looked at your phone and just looked at your Facebook.
Folks, I'm paying attention to you.
Okay.
I'm not looking up Jens Jaeger's Savannah Lions deck, which I had never seen before.
Okay. Anyways, bottom line is we love you, Flint. Take it out on us behind closed doors.
No,
okay.
Fran is actually right, which is that all the decks are freaking sweet.
Yeah, that's
I want to play all of them. I want to play Jens's deck. It's probably terrible.
Tron deck is sweet.
Tron
deck doesn't trigger Oath of Druids.
I would play that Tron deck. I mean, when I first saw the deck, you know, Fran was telling me like, oh, this deck is like its primary role in life is just to annihilate land still. And I'm just like, I don't really get it, right? Like, you know,
Decree for 1,000.
Yeah,
okay,
I got it eventually. Yeah. Decree for 1,000 is unbeatable. Because I was like, what? They just counter the stroke, right? No, they do not just counter the stroke.
Well, you got 4 strokes. And like you said, the deck only runs 4 counterspells, so.
But Decree for 1,000. So
you also turn off all your opponent's mana leaks with Tron.
What is the bad matchups for that deck?
I don't know. Everything else, like probably most beat down unless you're super lucky.
I think you're ahead. You cannot lose to the Rock with this deck. This is the deck that destroys
behind on
the
goblins,
Rock.
Behind on burn.
Okay, hold on.
Let's slow down. Mostly behind on elves.
Behind on you have like no real solution for Price of Progress, right?
Yeah. You just
Cop red or no?
Yeah, exactly. Cop red only. Cop red or bust. Just play 4 copies.
Well, you need to mix it up, man. Cop red doesn't stop Goblin Lackey.
Well, that's just a problem for Mastercore or Wrath of God. Anyways.
No, it's too late.
I know. Just better have plowshares. I don't know what to mold the plowshares. You can mold the plowshares. That was my strategy on Replenish.
But the problem is the colored mana pin is so hard on that deck.
It is. It's horrible. Anyways.
You just need to get out of stage 1. Once you're out of stage 1, that deck's really great.
I mean, it's great, but you can still fumble. Like, we watched, unfortunately for Jeffrey, Justin Jaffrey, in Sacred Torch, which you still haven't posted on your YouTube, he had all the Tron lands and none of the colored lands in Dave Kaplan. So he had 1,000 colorless mana and no white, just like 1 white mana so that he could disenchant once. And just like Kaplan's like, okay, counterspell attack for 12.
Is that in the top 8?
That was in the Swiss. We commentated it.
Oh, really? I don't remember this.
All right, should we wrap on 2 hours?
So I was like, I just looked over and like an hour had gone by since when I looked over.
Yeah.
I
just want to play Magic. I'm going to rob our listeners of the last 30 minutes.
The last hour that we would.
Yeah, the last hour that we would record.
Fran says that our podcast can't ever be too
our
long.
podcast is too short. I only received positive feedback on our long-ass episode, but I think...
What is even the topic? What are you going to title this? We sit around in Mike's house and talk about stuff.
Yep, that's what it's called. Love Spy Colony.
Love Spy Colony. Love Mike. Bye.